what matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Boston Public Radio, live from the...
It is time to step back from the brink.
Israel has admitted that its strike on the World Central Kitchen convoy was a mistake. Guterres points out that 196 humanitarian workers have been killed in this conflict, and he says all should be investigated. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
President Biden heads to Baltimore today to survey the damage from the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. As NPR's Tamara Keith reports, he will also get a briefing on salvage and recovery efforts.
President Biden will meet with state and federal officials and get an operational briefing about efforts to remove debris, recover the bodies of the men killed in the collapse, and ultimately restore shipping and vehicle traffic. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says Biden will also meet with family members of the victims.
They were hard workers laboring in the middle of the night to repair potholes on a bridge that tens of thousands of travelers crossed every day. The president will meet with loved ones of those individuals during his trip.
She also confirmed that senior White House officials have called major employers in the Baltimore area to urge them to retain workers despite disruptions caused by the disaster. Tamara Keith, NPR News, the White House.
Workers at a Mercedes assembly plant in Alabama are filing for a union election, according to the United Auto Workers Union. This is the second Southern auto plant to call for a union election this year. From the Gulf States newsroom, Stephen Bisaha reports the UAW has long struggled to recruit Southern workers.
The South has a booming auto industry, and foreign car makers have been building factories here for decades, in large part because there are so few unions here. Jay White works at this Mercedes plant in Alabama and says pay is already high, especially compared to other jobs in the region.
If we force Mercedes to go even higher in pay, we're going to lose in other areas, and that may mean jobs.
But many workers at this plant want to join the UAW after it successfully negotiated higher wages and benefits with the big three automakers last year. Those contracts also caught the eye of Volkswagen assembly plant workers in Tennessee. They'll vote on whether or not to join the UAW in 2 weeks. For NPR News, I'm Stephen Bisaha in Birmingham, Alabama.
On Wall Street, the Dow was up 215 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. We are getting word that an earthquake struck the New York region just after 10:30 this morning. Numerous reports of medium to heavy shaking were felt throughout New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and even parts of Massachusetts. According to the United States Geological Survey, the quake's epicenter, North Plainfield, New Jersey, and measured about 4.8 on the Richter scale. As for Massachusetts, we're seeing reports of minor shaking in Worcester, Brookline, Boston, Concord, and Salem. Meanwhile, Gren Ruga of Concord tells GBH News that he was up at his attic workspace when the quake hit.
Noticed my computer monitor shaking, and sometimes it happens in a big truck outside on Route 2 or close to Route 2, but there was no big truck, there was no noise from outside. And then my workmate, just one desk down from me, said, "Did you feel that? Is that an earthquake?" And we both kind of looked at each other, and we said, yeah, it could have been.
GBH News is checking in with state officials and the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, MEMA, to learn if there was any damage from the quake or here in the Commonwealth. In sports, the Red Hot Celtics play Sacramento at the Garden tonight. Red Sox open a weekend series with the Angels in L.A., and you better get some rest tonight because the NCAA women's basketball, Final Four is tonight. North Carolina State versus South Carolina starts at 7, and then at 9:30, it's Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes versus the Connecticut Huskies. Oh, boy. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from C3 AI. C3 Generative AI works to enable rapid access to traceable, hallucination-free insights from enterprise systems using any LLM, helping turn the invisible into the obvious. C3.ai. This is NPR.
Hey, Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. By the way, everybody's looking around here. Like, where is that disembodied voice coming from?
I know.
Where the hell are you, actually?
Well, being a Irish
Okay,
woman,
fine.
I had
Okay,
some
fine. All right,
skin
fine.
cancer on my face. That's what it's about.
I didn't think you needed to disclose.
Well,
She's
you
fine,
asked.
by the way.
I'm
That was a
fine.
rhetorical question.
I just look scabby.
Oh, my God. You look fabulous, by the way. Does she look fabulous in
I
black
don't.
and white? Or
I don't.
That was very tepid applause. I don't think they
Okay.
actually feel that way. By the way, in about a half hour to lift your spirits, we're going to be joined by 4 performers from the Sondheim revival, Sondheim Play Company, this brilliant, brilliant show that's playing in town through the 14th. 4 of the performers are going to talk to us and perform. I saw it the other night. It was spectacular. The mayor of Boston is going to join us next Tuesday, Michelle Wu, for an hour here and a bunch of other things. So on Wednesday of this week, Senators Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren held a Senate Health Committee hearing in Boston about Steward health care. They invited the yacht-loving CEO, Ralph De La Torre, but he declined to attend. Here's Senator Markey at that hearing.
Dr. De La Torre's chair is as empty as the promises he made to the public. And we are going to not stop until we get the answers.
Joining us now via Zoom, we invited him, and he actually came, Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey. Senator, thanks so much for being with us.
No, of course. Great to be with you, as always.
Senator Markey, thank you very much for being here. So, Jim mentioned your hearings up at the State House involving Steward health care. A lot of reporting about how they have not been paying vendors, that crucial medical tools were repossessed. A woman died after giving birth up there. Meanwhile, De La Torre's got, as Jim mentioned, a 190-foot, $40 million yacht. So what did you say up on Beacon Hill?
Well, obviously, Ralph De La Torre saw these Catholic hospitals that he was willing to take over and turn from a nonprofit to a for-profit system as an opportunity for him and other investors to reap personal wealth, but at the expense of the healthcare system that is at the heart of Massachusetts. And so it was very clear as the witnesses were testifying, one after another, analyzing in eye-watering detail what the plot was, what the scam was that De La Torre and his cronies were undertaking as they were willing to take over this Catholic hospital system in Massachusetts. And so it was very clear that inside of our state, where we have a nonprofit hospital system for the most part, Mass General, Brigham, Beth Israel, all the way down the line, that this for-profit system that was created by De La Torre was really just a play to enrich him and to enrich all of those that were a part, Cerebus, all the others that were a part of this investment scheme. And the price that is being paid is in the provision of healthcare, as you said, Marjorie, as people are heading towards emergency rooms all over the Commonwealth.
You know, Senator Markey, we had the governor and the attorney general on the same day about a week or two ago, and we asked them whether or not we should even allow for-profit healthcare in Massachusetts. The attorney general said the issue should at least be on the table. The governor said, that's not my issue. My issue is making sure that whoever provides the care provides it efficiently, effectively, and affordably. Where are you on for-profit ownership of hospitals in Massachusetts?
Well, what I'm going to do is to introduce a law, my Health Over Wealth Act, and the goal of that bill is going to be to mandate that private equity companies set aside funding to protect access to care, remove tax breaks that incentivize companies to strip hospital assets, and giving a bigger voice to workers and patients to review and block these deals that would impact patient care, access, or safety. And we just have to guarantee that there's transparency when for-profit companies move in as they're reporting their finances, the real estate deals, how much their investors and shareholders are getting paid, and they'd have to report on everything else as well. So I just think we need a whole different and newer system that we put in place in Massachusetts, but across the whole country, because what Stewart is doing is the warning for the whole rest of the country.
Can I ask a follow-up there, Marjorie, just for a second? So it seems you seem to be saying you want stricter rules and regulations applying to for-profits that are here, but is it a backdoor way to make it, if they're more transparent, which Stewart has never been in Massachusetts, if you got to have these escrow accounts or whatever you want to call them, is that going to create an environment in which for-profits will find Massachusetts not a fertile field to open up in and essentially achieve the end of for-profit healthcare through the back door?
I think that Don Berwick's testimony made it very clear what the heart of the problem is. Here's a man who ran CMS in the Obama administration. Nobody knows more about this subject. And when we asked him in the hearing about the specifics of this deal and the finances of Stewart for 2021, 2022, 2023, he says, I don't have access to any of that information. It's not public. It's not something that is accessible to be able to make any evaluation. So clearly, this is a hide the ball strategy, which Stewart has, but I think it's a for-profit hospital system play that keeps that information away from the public eyes, in sharp contrast with what nonprofit hospitals have to do.
I'm sorry, but are you saying we shouldn't have for-profits here?
I'm saying that we have to raise the bar nationally as well. And what Stewart has done is clearly make it very, very clear that we need much higher guardrails that are built around it. As we talk, I just want to make sure that we don't preclude some resolution of this Stewart case that doesn't involve, any entity from at least making the case that they can do it better. But at the same time, nothing should ever go forward again that doesn't have these transparent safeguards that are built into the system.
Senator, just one last question. Because these are hospitals, obviously this is life and death situation here. I'm wondering whether there's something criminal in having necessary life and death medical equipment repossessed while you're off on your 190-foot, $40 million yacht, or is there no law against that?
Well, again, we don't know everything that has taken place financially inside of the company. That's why I've begun this investigation. That's why I think it's important for the Justice Department, for the state of Massachusetts, to conduct this full-scale investigation. Because at the heart of this was a plot to loot the healthcare system, the hospital system in Massachusetts for private self-aggrandizement. And Ralph DeLatorre and his company moved from Boston to Dallas, Texas, to go down to a state with lower regulations, almost no transparency requirements, and it's very clear what he and all of his cohorts were trying to accomplish. So whether or not there's a criminal act at the heart of this, I think that is yet to be determined. But I do think that that decision can only be made after we get all of the financial information that is still yet to be made public.
We're talking to Senator Ed Markey. Senator, yesterday we had two family members of Israeli family members of a hostage who was released after 54 days and another hostage who is still being held from whom they have not heard anything for more than 100 days. That's one side of this horror show. The other side is you, Elizabeth Warren, and a bunch of senators, a minority, have been voting to condition aid to Israel on some changes in their behavior vis-a-vis innocent people in Gaza. Yesterday, it seemed finally Joe Biden seemed to be moving in the direction that you have been urging the United States to take now for weeks and weeks and weeks. Are you satisfied that Joe Biden is there, or is it still rhetoric waiting to be acted upon?
Well, obviously, I'm heartened that Joe Biden is moving in this direction. we have to make sure that we reduce civilian harm, that we guarantee that there is desperately needed assistance to people in need, and that what the president is now saying is, for all intents and purposes, no more blank check to Bibi Netanyahu. No more just allowing him to do whatever he wants to do, especially since his key advisors of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who want to completely annex the West Bank, as they call it, Samaria in Judea. So having them as key advisors in his administration is just a further demonstration of the lack of leadership that Netanyahu is providing on this issue. And what Senator Van Hollen and Senator Warren and I have been saying to the president is that there should be no additional aid if the Israelis, if the Netanyahu administration is not abiding by international law, abiding by U.S. law. And we believe that that's at least the minimum standard that that Netanyahu has to abide by. And thus far, he's just almost in an insulting way dismissed President Biden's concerns, which is why I'm grateful that the president is now ratcheting up his demands on the Netanyahu administration.
Senator Markey, do you agree with Senator Chuck Schumer that there should be new elections in Israel?
Absolutely. Netanyahu is just hanging on by his fingernails. And again, part of what he is concerned about is a pending criminal case against him that cannot begin as long as he is the prime minister. So that's what I'm afraid of. It's this merger of a private agenda that Netanyahu has with the public agenda, which Israel needs. Israel has to have in its policies this ethical core, which is what it is that has maintained strong U.S. partnership for 75 years. And the more that Netanyahu abandons that and heads in a direction which is antithetical to U.S. and historic Israeli values, is something that should be on the ballot in Israel. So I agree 100% with Chuck Schumer that Netanyahu should call for the election so that the Israeli people can make this decision.
You know, Senator Markey, I think most people would agree you are the key climate guy in the United States Senate. Joe Biden, I believe in the last day or so, has signed off on these green bank grants in the amount of $20 billion. I'm hoping you could briefly describe what that means to us, and at the same time say the good news is the $20 billion in grants. It seems to me that the bad news is if the government doesn't spend it by January, it's possible it may disappear depending upon what happens in November. So take it away.
All right. Well, actually, Chris Van Hollen and I, 15 years ago, we included a climate bank in the Waxman-Markey bill that was then killed in the Senate after it passed the House of Representatives. I served in the House of Representatives at that time. So in 2022, as we were debating the IRA, we saw our opportunity to strike. And what we were able to do is to create a $20 billion green bank. And what McKinsey and others are saying is that that could unleash upwards of $100 billion worth of private sector investment as well. So what it will mean, and what my goal was, is that 50% of the funding has to go to Black, Brown, disadvantaged communities, those that have been most adversely impacted historically by environmental injustice. And these will be low interest and no interest loans where, for example, in Roxbury, the Black minister can say, I need that loan to put solar panels on the church in Roxbury. Or the city of Boston can say, we need a low interest loan so we can raise the level of sustainability of the public housing system inside of the city of Boston. It's anticipated that there could be upwards of 10,000 loans that are issued coming out of the climate bank and the entities that it's going to create. So at the same time, I agree with you, Jim. on Fox News every night, they're calling this climate bank absolutely the enemy of the drill baby drill strategy, which Trump enunciates at the top of every one of his speeches. This climate bank is actually key to making sure that at the local level all across the country that communities and in any part of that community can apply for these loans. So we have to get the rules up, which is why I'm grateful to the Biden administration and Administrator Regan for doing this. And we've got to get the money out and into these institutions all across the country, because this will be at the top of the list of those things which Trump will be promising that he will destroy if he is elected. By the way, along with the fuel economy standards for the vehicles which we drive, the regulations on reducing greenhouse gases coming out of utilities. But this green bank is just something that rubs them raw, and I hear it. I watch Fox News just so I can understand where the next attack is coming from. And I'm kind of proud, 5 years after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I introduced the Green New Deal, that they still talk about it every single night. I wish we talked about it more on MSNBC and CNN, but it just shows you where they know they can get their base aroused.
We're talking to the masochistic, because he watches Fox News, Ed Markey, United States Senator from Massachusetts.
Senator, you just mentioned some things that we could lose climate-wise if President Trump is reelected, and it's certainly a possibility. The polls are close. We're running out of time here. What does happen to our climate goals if he is reelected, beyond what you just mentioned?
Climate, it's on the ballot. There's no two ways about it. He's running on climate. He starts every single speech with drill, baby, drill. It's drill, baby, drill, and build the wall. That's 1 and 1A of his presentation. And of course, what we're saying is it's not drill, baby, drill. It's plug in, baby, plug in. It's a completely different vision for the country. But his principal funders, we're going to find out as the year unfolds, will be oil, gas, and coal industry participants who really do see this as the turning point in the history of their industry. So it's all on the ballot, and Green New Dealers everywhere just have to understand that they have to keep their energy level high, because if we win, if Biden wins, if we can win the House and Senate, by January 20th, 2029, at the next presidential inaugural, it will be over. All of these institutions, the climate bank or the fuel economy standards or the environmental justice funding, it will then be so deeply entrenched inside of the American system that it will be like the Affordable Care Act. We will have turned it into another political third rail that is too dangerous for the Republican Party to touch. But we're not there yet, which is why people have to get up and out and organizing, not agonizing, for the next 7 months to make sure that we win this election.
You know, Senator Markey, every time you're on, you know what we have to discuss, and it's a measure that requires Senator Markey to pretend that he actually likes Marco Rubio, because they're co-sponsors of this legislation that would make daylight saving time year-round. Daylight saving with no S, friends. Are we getting anywhere, Senator, or no?
So Marco Rubio is my friend on this issue, and we're going to continue to work on it. It's not easy. It's not easy, but let me ask you this, Jim. On Monday, coming up, we can still discuss daylight savings time, but then we have a solar eclipse. We have the sun in the news
Senator,
on Monday, huh?
Yeah. And
so that's a big day for you and I. This coming Monday, huh?
Wait, I'm sure it is, but why is it a big day for you and me, Senator?
Because we get a chance to say, yeah, the sun is important. We don't want to see it blocked out. We want to have it year-round daylight savings time.
By the way, I cannot believe you, the chief sponsor of this damn thing, say savings. It is not savings. It is saving time. Senator, what's up with that?
What's up with that? I'm still saying it the way I did when I was 9 years old.
Yeah,
You're
that's
exactly
okay.
right. It's just another part of it's like I still call it the Mystic River Bridge, not the Tobin Bridge. I still call it the Revere Beach Parkway.
Okay, you're excused.
I can't help myself. I'm still tied to what I heard in the intersection of Malden growing up. And before it's all said and done, I'm going to get it all out of my system. But right now, you're right. It's daylight saving time.
Thank you.
Thank you for correcting me.
Senator,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, before you go, Senator, John Walsh was a good friend of Jim Browdy's, and I know he was your chief of staff, and he was a big player in Democratic politics who just died a few months back. Not a very old man. I think he was 65, too young. So tell us about what he meant to Massachusetts politics.
Well, John was the organizing principle for the 21st century in Massachusetts. He took an unknown African-American lawyer, DeVal Patrick, and brilliantly created a campaign that, with the exception of Doug Wilder in Virginia, had Massachusetts as the first state with a governor who was African American, and it helped to transform our state dramatically for 8 years. And then John was the chair of the Democratic State Party. And when I was challenged in 2020, once again, John said that he would run my campaign, and we ran it on the Green New Deal, we ran it on climate change. And because of his brilliance, we defied all of the experts' analysis of the race. We were down by some polling by 14 or 17 points. But John actually trusted people. He trusted the grassroots. He trusted that if you challenge people on the issues that they would respond. And so his legacy is going to live on forever because this grassroots organization across 351 cities and towns, it was central. And in our campaign, we used to call him, Jim, we used to call him Captain Sunshine. And because you could not present any news to him that he couldn't interpret as a great opportunity for us to respond.
That's great.
So we even incorporated daylight savings time into our campaign by calling John Captain Sunshine.
I love that. Well, he was a wonderful man. Beyond being a spectacular organizer and incredibly creative, he was just a terrific, down-to-earth person, and we all miss him, and I know you do too, Senator.
Yeah, I miss him every day. He was my campaign manager in 2019 and 2020, and then I convinced him.
I know.
And everyone said it was impossible. I convinced him to move to Washington for 3 years to be my chief of staff, and unfortunately in November he passed away. And it's a great, great loss because, like you're saying, 65 in this era is very young man.
Well, he was a good one. Senator Markey, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us, Senator. We really appreciate it. That was, of course,
Thank you.
Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. And again, we appreciate his time. Okay, coming up. This is a real treat. Live Music Friday here at the library. We have got performers from the U.S. tour of Stephen Sondheim's legendary, Tony-winning, longtime Broadway hit Company. They're in Boston through the 14th, but they're here at the Boston Public Library right now. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Fought back against the Islamic State, but cities were left in ruins. Now, some of the reconstruction work is being done by children. We meet young teens injured in Syria's dangerous construction jobs next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Babson College. Students can gain the know-how to become a successful leader at the #1 graduate school in entrepreneurship, ranked by U.S. News and World Report. Virtual open house April 17th. babson.edu/grad open house. And Comcast, offering the Xfinity 10G network, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. Xfinity.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're at the Did I say at the Boston Public Library? Well, whether I did or not, we are at the Boston Public Library. Streaming youtube.com/GBH News. You have about 3 minutes to wait until the performers from Company join us. You know, Marjorie, my major takeaway, I think, from talking to Ed Markey is when he said climate's on the ballot in November. And as soon as he said that, I said to myself, what's the constituency that has shown the greatest disenchantment with Joe Biden and its young voters? And what's the single most important issue, according to pollsters, with young voters? What is it? Climate change.
Yeah, climate. But again, it's going to be, they may not be thrilled with Joe Biden and what he's done or not done, but as Markey just said, and it's absolutely true, Donald Trump is a climate change denier. His campaign is going to be funded by the fossil fuel industry, and he gets up there and makes these ridiculous statements about, this is while he was still the president, but I remember he said that, oh yeah, well, the ocean is going to get, what did he say, half an inch or an eighth of an inch closer in the next 300 years. I mean, some ridiculous statements like that. He's trying to undermine the electric car industry. Not that it hasn't had its problems. There aren't enough chargers, et cetera. They're expensive, blah, blah, blah. And it's not perfect, but electric cars make a big difference on climate and all these things that Senator Markey is talking about. You know, look at the weather just this winter. We're talking later about the eclipse up in Vermont. Lots of people going to Vermont, where they had massive floods. Floods in Montpelier, Vermont.
I was there for those, actually.
Were you in Montpelier for the floods?
I went the day after the floods. I told you all the roads were washed out.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And they've hardly had any snow.
Yeah.
We have these torrential rain. I mean, it's happening now, and we're basically out of time. And if Trump is elected president, I think that's it. We're not going to be able to stop this in any reasonable kind of way.
Well, we're going to do? We're going to stop this, because as we tend to say all the time now, all we do on the show is talk about death and destruction.
That's right.
And one of the ways we relieve ourselves, so to speak, poor choice of words, is we have live music. And we're about to have live music. So let's take a quick break, and then 4 performers from the wonderful tour.
A crumbling infrastructure, slow trains, late buses. Can we trust the T? I'm Bob C. Join me Tuesday, April 16th at our GBH studio in Brighton for a community forum. Bring all your transit questions. We'll be joined by MBTA General Manager Phil Eng, Secretary of Transportation Monica Tibbetts-Nutt, and Jared Johnson from Transit Matters. RSVP at gbhnews.org/Can We Trust the T?
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Upstart Logic, founded in Silicon Valley in 1998, committed to helping CEOs and their teams diagnose and solve intricate problems, cultivate leadership, and develop company culture. Learn more at upstartlogic.com. And JTA, Joe the Architect, an architecture, interiors, and branding firm committed to creating spaces people can live, work, and dine in. Joe the Architect, let's make someplace great. Learn more at joethearchitect.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I am Jim Browdy at the library. Marjorie is like in a witness protection program or something. I really have no idea what's going on, but she's sort of here via Zoom or something. Through April 14th, Broadway lovers have the opportunity to catch the thoroughly modern, gender-swapping rendition of instead centers on Bobby and her travails, trying and failing to find the perfect man. For information and to book tickets, and I went Wednesday, you should go, BroadwayInBoston.com. We have 4 cast members with us today. With us at the interview desk is Tyler Hardwick, who starred in the Tony-winning revival tour of Once on This Island, which my daughter went and saw, by the way. I should say, I called her this morning. She said it was great, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you also probably called him on Good Morning America. If you're up early, Tyler plays PJ. Beth Stafford Laird, who's a Philly kid, which means a lot to me, and went to Emerson. She's the understudy for that lead Bobby. You might have caught her in national tours of shows like Anastasia and Newsies. It's a pleasure to have you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, first of all, almost every time we do Live Music Friday, we get somebody from Emerson College.
It's
They're
amazing.
They're doing something right down there at Emerson College. But let's start with you, Beth. The whole idea, the original company, it was a guy is the central character, and now it's you. So, so what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, the central conceit of the show is about a single person surrounded by all of their married friends, and on the precipice of their birthday, sort of questioning, like, what do I want? Do I want a relationship? Do I want what my married friends have? That seems a little confusing. And so I think that for this gender-swapped version, for it to be a woman turning 35 in a society that's more like today's society, I really think that it resonates with a lot of people. I think a lot of women, I am 35 myself, a lot of women my age really relate to these questions of, like, what do I want out of a relationship? What am I looking for? Is it even worth it in the end? And all of that. So I think it's great.
You know, Tyler, even though I'm a huge Sondheim fan, I have to say, when I went Wednesday night, I was worried this thing was not going to age well. The original production was like 50-some years ago, a little bit before both of you were born, I should say, but not me. Were you worried when you were trying out for the part that this was not going to be right for 2024?
No, I actually think that the circumstances just lend themselves to be even stronger, because a 35-year-old man who is searching for, where's my place in the world, definitely will always resonate. But now then you add the fact of a woman with societal pressures of have a baby. Even if we are a modern society, there's always going to be a population of people that have those preconceived notions. So I think it just adds on to the...
When were you first exposed to Sondheim? How old were you, and what'd you like about him?
Ooh.
Either of you. Beth, why don't you start while Tyler's
for
thinking?
me, it was probably high school when I started to get really serious about wanting to do musical theater professionally. We did Sweeney Todd in my high school, which was amazing. And then around the same time, the revival of Company was on Broadway with Raul Esparza. And my mom and I went to go see it, knowing nothing about the show. We just walked in. We were like, this sounds cool. And we left, like, totally enthralled, obsessed with the music. I started listening to the album on repeat. Like, I wanted to work on every song from Company in college when I finally got to Emerson. So for me, this show is incredibly special. And the fact that it's linked to Sondheim, which is just incredible material.
How about you and Sondheim?
I would say Elaine Stritch when I heard, gosh. Who is this brassy woman who is not apologetic about anything? And I think that was one of the first performers that I saw that sent me into this art form.
You know, Tyler, we mentioned the dreaded local angle with Beth at Emerson College, but you got some family in town here in Boston, so we'll get you your dreaded local angle. Are they there in the library today cheering you on, or what's the deal?
I told them last minute, and I'm trying to do a little scan. I don't know if they're here, but they should be here soon. And they're watching the live stream. But I have 2 cousins and an aunt that lives here. They love it.
Well, you're looking good. That's all that really matters when it comes to the live stream. So what is it like? You're an understudy for 2 lead parts, not just Bobby. Is that not right?
Correct. Yeah, I also understudied Jenny.
How do you deal with it? How do you prepare for that?
One thing at a time.
By the way, I heard you sing before. You are unbelievable.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to hear you in a couple of minutes, but go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, being an understudy is interesting. I've done a lot of understudying. I've done swinging, which is even more. Sometimes swings have to learn 5, 6, 7, 8 parts.
Mm-hmm.
That means swing is not just one understudy for it's all those parts?
Yeah, swings.
Wow.
Swings will usually understudy full ensembles of companies.
Wow.
Understudies focus mainly on different principal parts, and so I cover 2 in this show. And you just got to do one thing at a time. You start start learning the lines as best you can. You start writing down the blocking, and it's just copious notes and lots of highlighting and color coding and things like that. And then just practice, and one thing at a time, and eventually it all comes together.
Why are you laughing at your buddy here?
Because it's hard. And I understand it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is an impossible job that, I feel like serving at a restaurant, every performer should swing one time, because then you really understand the big picture and the tedious amount of work that goes into maintaining a machine of a show.
But not just that. I mean, secretly, you have to hope that somebody's great-grandmother dies, or that maybe they...
Oh, Jesus.
All right, this is taking a turn. Get yourself together.
I mean, because you it's an opportunity, right? You hear all these stories about people. Leonard Bernstein, the great composer here, somebody got too sick when he was 29 to do the New York Philharmonic. It was his big break. Not that I want anyone's great-grandmother to die or get sick.
Well, too late for that. You already said it, but go ahead.
There must be a little bit.
Taking a turn.
You'd never wish ill for anybody, of course, but
Of course.
every understudy hopes for an opportunity to get to perform the role that they spend a lot of time working on backstage. So, and oftentimes, people take personal days. Life happens when you're on tour.
Yes.
We're on tour for a full year, and so family members get married, and people want to take vacation. We can take vacation if we want to, that kind of thing. So yeah, there are those opportunities as well. It's not just. It's
So
not
deaths
just
aren't necessary, is what she's saying. We don't need deaths in this thing.
We'll take the influenza. I mean,
that's right.
A little less.
That cold.
You're going to be on tour for a year?
Well, we already did 6 months. So
Since
we're slated,
October.
Yeah, we're slated for another 6 months.
What's that? I mean, to a lay person who doesn't do what you do, it's thrilling, you get to see all these cities. It's like an exhausting kind of deal, though. You do a couple of weeks, then you pack up. You do a couple of weeks, and so what is it?
It is. It's
exhausting or
it's
thrilling?
Exhausting.
It is exhausting,
but it does have its thrills. Like being in bigger cities like Boston or DC is amazing. Some of the smaller markets are interesting, but also. You have to throw respect out there, because those people don't always get to see shows at this, level. So they are very excited to be able to see shows, and I think we're happy to be able to give it to them.
So how good are you when you're in one of those small towns that you were just trying to be kind about, and an interviewer like me or Marjorie says, "So how does our city rank in the pantheon of great places to perform company?" What do you say there, Tyler?
This is really tough. I'm a New Yorker, so I'm gonna pass it on to.
Well, she's a Philly kid.
I'm
She's
gonna
not
give it to
exactly
the one that went to
small town.
Emerson, because I'm a Yankee.
I think the real answer is you hope you never get that question. But no, I think every audience is it when you're on stage in a new city, it's you sort of, the first couple of days, you test that relationship with that audience. You're sort of figuring out, what do they respond to? What do they think is funny? What do they not think is funny? What do they, what really excites them? Where does it feel like the energy's sort of lagging a little? So it's it's less about rank per se, and more about what's the relationship with this audience in this city going to be like? And every audience has something to offer. Even the quiet ones.
Even the quiet ones. Charlie, before you join your colleagues and tell us, sort of set up the performance about what exactly the three of you were singing about it, which was praised in today's Globe, by the way, as a major moment in the piece. Also, as a layperson, I love seeing things that are ensemble casts like this, because they look to me, as someone in the audience, as something that's a wild amount of fun. I mean, and obviously Bobby is the star, but sort of part of an ensemble too. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think we're all stars in our own right, in the sense of the way the show is constructed. We all kind of pass the hot potato along in this journey about Bobby, and it's a principal ensemble cast. And where our moment comes into You Could Drive a Person Crazy is the Three Boyfriends trio, and it's kind of like this suspense of reality that pops out of nowhere, that is on the journey of Bobby trying to find if she wants to rekindle past relationships, or how her life is moving forward after this moment, and her figuring these things out. And we're kind of roasting her in the sense of any person thinking about what their exes would think about them.
Okay, so your two fellow performers are going to join us after the song. Tell us briefly about your character. Of the three, who are you?
PJ, the character of PJ, who was originally named Marta in the original conception of this, is one of the boyfriends of Bobby. And he is the wild character, go-lucky, everything, tries everything once, loves New York as a New Yorker. Don't hate me, Boston. Love me. Come to the show. is so proud of New York and is just a partier and full of life.
So we want to put your headphones down gently and join your colleagues, and we'll do it in a second. We'll talk to Beth for a minute while you're going over there. How important was Emerson truthfully, in your career?
Emerson was massively important. I really needed a 4-year college program to study musical theater. Not every performer needs a full 4-year program, but I really did, and I really benefited from having the time to grow and learn and make mistakes and fall down a few times and learn about myself in that way. And it really gave me the skills. It gave me the skills to really approach the craft of performing. And then everything else that you learn, you have to do by doing. So I moved to New York not long after graduating and just got by trial and error, the process of auditioning and things like that. That was where I learned of like how to manage the lifestyle of being an actor, if you will.
I bet you live in Brooklyn, am I right?
I do.
Everybody lives in Brooklyn.
Is that obvious?
You live in Brooklyn. Oh, Jesus. Okay, now we're going to hear Jacob Dickey, David Sokolar, and you just heard Tyler Hardwick singing "You Could Drive a Person Crazy." Gentlemen.
Come see us at the Boston Opera House. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. You could drive a person crazy. You could drive a person mad. Ba-da-da. First you make a person feel all hazy, so a person could be had. Ba-da-da. Then you leave a person dangling sadly outside your door, which it only makes a person gladly want you even more. I could understand a person if she said to go away. Ba-da-da. I could understand a person if she happened to be gay. You think? Do I know? Nah. But worse than that, a person that titillates a person and then leaves him flat is crazy. She's a troubled person. She's a truly crazy person herself. Who ghosted me? I opened up my posts on Instagram. When a person's personality is personable, she should notice it on her butt. It's harder than a matador coercible to try to get you out of your rut. So single and attentive and attractive, a chick is everything a person could wish. But turning off a person is the act of a chick who likes to pull the hooks out of fish. Knock, knock, is anybody there? Knock, knock, it really isn't fair. Not fair, not fair. Knock, knock, I'm working all my charge. Knock, knock, a zombie's in my arms. All that sweet affection, what is wrong? Where's the loose connection? How long, oh Lord, how long? Bobby, baby, Bobby, booby, Bobby. You could drive a person frantic. You could blow a person cool. Like you get a person all romantic. While you make him feel a fool. Ba-da. When a person says you just don't get her, that's when you're good. You impersonate a person better than a zombie should. I could understand a person if she wasn't good in bed. She's good. I could understand a person if she actually was dead. Ba-da-da. Exclusive you, elusive you. Will any person ever get the juice of you? You're crazy. You're a troubled person. You're a truly not adjusted and never to be trusted. Crazy person. Bobby is my hobby and I'm giving it up.
Jacob Dickey, Jacob and David, you're going to join us. That was fabulous. Thank you. Really, really great. Come over and join us if you can, you too, back here. Again, BroadwayInBoston.com is how you get tickets. They're here through the 14th, and I wouldn't miss it if I were you. We're now joined by David Sokolar, who plays Theo. Other credits include the lead in a new romantic comedy movie called Beyond the Lake, and Jacob Dickey, who played Aladdin on Broadway, also the Broadway version of this show. In this rendition, he plays the lovable himbo, I guess you could say. And welcome, gentlemen. That was great. We really appreciate it. It was really great. That's really good.
Okay, David, in a little pre-interview that I read that you did with our staff, you answered one of the questions that I'm obsessed with, because whenever I hear Broadway performers have a chance to go to a performance, I am wowed by the actors can sing, they can dance, they can act, they can do the whole thing. There's incredible harmony there.
What a shock.
But you talked about the difference between that, and you just made this movie on Apple, Beyond the Lake. You talked about the difference between doing a theater performance and doing a movie performance. Tell us.
Yeah. I find it interesting. I have a lot more experience in stage acting and performing, and I've studied it in school and everything. But I found over the course of this 5-week, 6-week film shoot that and I've watched copious amounts of interviews with Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, all the greats, about kind of the difference between acting for the stage and acting for the screen, and trying to find the truth, because ultimately it's the same. You're conveying a truth and an honesty if you can. Just the audience is a lot closer when you're on camera. So, we're always taught to perform to the back row in theater, because the back row paid to be there as much as the front row did, and you're trying to sort of reach them with everything that you're singing and saying. And with the camera, it's just everything's right here. There is no back row. So it frees up a subtlety that you don't necessarily get to explore as much on stage. But it's the same thing. I don't like to think of it as two different forms of storytelling, because at the end of the day, it's all about just reaching some form of connection with whatever the audience is, wherever they are.
So let's go from the spiritual to the mundane, Jacob. Your character is rather slow, can we say? In
Yes,
company, is that a fair? Describe your character to us, please, if you
My character is very sweet.
Very,
yes,
sweet.
He's a flight attendant. Originally, in the original version, his name was April, and it was kind of the trope of the dumb blonde, if you will. And now it is updated. Obviously, we're all boyfriends. And
you're sort of the dumb brunette.
I am the dumb brunette.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm proud to be. Some people get up, they're like, you're dumb, but is that okay to say? I'm like, yeah, he's so dumb. But that's why we love him, because he means well. He really, the thing about Andy is he just wants to do good and be good and have fun, and he just sometimes can't say what he wants to say.
Is it thrilling to do Sondheim? My understanding is I read that after he gave the approval to the director of the gender-swapped edition, as we're calling it here, and saying this is fabulous, he died right before it premiered. But is it thrilling to do Sondheim?
Oh, absolutely. It's the second Sondheim I've been able to be a part of. The first was a college production of Into the Woods. And every time it's a blast, because it requires so much patience in the rehearsal process of it, and it's so complicated. But then once it's like anything in life. The more complicated something is to accomplish, the more satisfying it is when you ultimately get to that point where it's rote, where it's just...
Can your character understand what he's saying, or no?
I can't understand what he's saying right now, so I was typecast.
Theo's very highbrow.
But Jacob, it's a little bit of a different story growing up in a family of musical Marines.
Yeah.
Is that true, or is that true?
Yeah.
I read that too, really?
Both my parents are Marines, my younger brother's a Marine, but we just grew up playing guitar and drums and music and singing, and that's just kind of how I segued into theater. I think some people hear Marines and they're like, they must have been so hard to be an artist. I'm like, no, my parents were really creative, and they just were really supportive of what we wanted to do.
Talk about branding. I'm sorry, go ahead, what?
I was going to say, don't they have a name for women Marines? What do they call them? Isn't there some...
I don't know, but I probably couldn't say it on air.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with wide hips. I think that's what it has to do with.
Excuse me? I don't think my mom had ever said that.
Nor will you say
sergeant,
it, right? So, company, you're all wearing company T-shirts, which say brilliant branding.
Yeah.
And in the play, company, the word, is part of the thing. It's the subway, it's the whatever. It's sort of brilliant in an odd sort of way. You understand that, right?
Yeah, the branding of it all, it was such a strong point, even from the West End production. It started in the West End production of this, but they had a very clear vision for how the entire production, outside of even the stage set, was going to look and feel, and it's very sleek, and it's very New York.
So let me just say, the three of you together, that piece, that was just
awesome.
Not only great here, it's fabulous on
you.
stage. Do you want to tell people what your colleague Beth is about to perform? One of my favorite songs ever.
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way.
It's one of the most iconic musical theater songs ever written, I think. It's called Being Alive. It's kind of the climax and the ultimate conclusion of... steeped in ambiguity, I'll say,
Yeah.
of whether or not what she's decided over the course of the show.
And here to sing it is Beth Stafford Laird. Thank you, Beth.
Too deep. Is alone, not alive. Somebody crowd me with love. Somebody force me to care. Somebody let me come through. I'll always be there, as frightened as you, to help us survive. Being alive. Being alive. Being alive.
Wow.
Beth Stafford Laird and Being Alive. That was spectacular, Beth.
Yep. Thank
it's
you
a Philly
so much.
upbringing, I think, that did that. In my
Absolutely.
opinion.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Andrew Lloyd Webber, Liz Cheney, Supreme Court correspondent Nina Totenberg, and news anchor Chris Wallace. bostonspeakers.org. Stay informed this election season and join local political newsmakers, analysts, and activists as they discuss issues and take a deep dive into local politics. Catch Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2.
I'm reporter Marilyn Scherer, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH.
Working and forgetting the whole thing? Call or text. That's all ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. Just before 10:30 this morning local time, an earthquake struck a few miles north of White House Station, New Jersey. The U.S. Geological Survey says it had a preliminary magnitude of 4.8. It was felt across the region in densely populated areas from Philadelphia to New York City. Residents are rattled. NPR's Carly Rubin has more from Brooklyn, New York.
I was in my apartment when it happened, and all of a sudden it started to feel like my upstairs neighbors had about 10 washing machines going at once. My things in my room started to shake, and then all of a sudden we started to feel that sensation from below. And then, it started to feel like our building was going to fall down.
NPR's Carly Rubin in Brooklyn. The New York City Fire Department says there are no preliminary reports of damage. The FAA says Newark International Airport has a ground stop until 12:30 p.m., and other flights in the New York, Baltimore, and Philadelphia areas may be affected by the quake. Amtrak reports rail inspections are underway. The White House says President Biden has been briefed on the quake and is in touch with federal, state, and local officials. He heads to Baltimore today to survey the wreckage of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge. NPR's Joel Rose reports.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has released its first tentative timeline for the reopening of the Baltimore shipping channel. The Army Corps expects to open a limited access channel to the Port of Baltimore within the next 4 weeks. The channel will be 35 feet deep and 280 feet wide. That's enough to support one-way traffic for barge container service and some of the larger vessels that move automobiles and farm equipment to the port. If the weather cooperates, the Army Corps aims to have the full channel, 50 feet deep and 700 feet wide, cleared by the end of May, restoring the port to normal capacity. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
The UN Human Rights Council has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution that calls for Israel to be held accountable for possible war crimes and crimes against humanity. 6 countries voted against the resolution, which passed with 28 votes in favor and 13 abstentions. Lisa Schlein reports from Geneva.
U.S. Ambassador Michelle Taylor is criticizing Israel for not doing enough to mitigate civilian harm in Gaza, but says the U.S. couldn't vote for the resolution because it contained too many problematic elements.
For example, there is no specific condemnation of Hamas for perpetrating the horrific October 7th attacks. Neither is there any reference to the terrorist nature of those actions.
The resolution, while not binding, calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and for the opening of land routes so emergency humanitarian aid can reach Gaza's population. For NPR News, I'm Lisa Schlein in Geneva.
Stock prices are moving higher. The Dow is up 377 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts residents felt tremors from the earthquake that hit New Jersey around 10:30 this morning. As we heard from our colleagues in Washington, Glenn Ruga tells GBH News that he felt the quake at his home in Concord, Mass., and it got him to thinking.
Everything that's going on geologically and astronomically right now, our basement's flooding right now from the rains from yesterday. We're going up to Vermont to see the eclipse on Sunday, and now this. It just seems like the Earth is making itself known to us in a lot of different ways right now.
In a statement, MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, says that they have, quote, received multiple reports of shaking across the Commonwealth. Our local coordinators are making outreach to their municipal liaisons across the state to receive any reports of damage or requests for state assistance. Well, police on Nantucket being assisted by the Massachusetts State Police after human bones were discovered near the Phillips Run Swamp area in Tom Nevers. Bones discovered by a seasonal resident who was walking in that area. Spokesperson for the Nantucket Police Department says patrol officers, detectives, and the Mass State Police located the human remains in a dense area off Milestone Road. They say the scene was secured, evidence was collected. The human remains are now in the hands of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. No word on the cause of death or how long those remains have been there. The situation is under investigation. In sports, the Red Hot Celtics play Sacramento at the Garden tonight, and the Sox open a series with the Angels in L.A. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio, hour number 2. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And I want to mention that Mayor Wu will be with us next Tuesday for Asks the Mayor. And Philip Eng, who runs the Tea, will be with us at the library next Friday for Ask the General Manager of the Tea. Both of them will be here with us from 11 to noon. Hello, Jim.
Hey there. Marjorie is at an undisclosed location, so,
I am.
So don't ask. We're joined now at the desk by GBH's Callie Crossley, who is actually here. Callie is the host of Under the Radar, with Kelly Crossley. You can catch that Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. You can also hear Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. She's also the co-host for GBH's The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 right here on 89.7. And by the way, it will be live today. It's Friday, right after our show. So either stick around or come on down. Hello, Callie Crossley.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie.
Hey there.
Hello, Callie Crossley. So I'm so excited about women's basketball this year, Final Four. We got Caitlin Clark and we've got Angel Reese, LSU star. And I hate to be my superficial self, but let
I
me
knew
be
you
my
were going to do
superficial
this.
self and say I looked up the pictures of Angel Reese in Vogue
So did
magazine,
I.
and she is a knockout, I guess, off the court and on the court. So tell us about her.
Well, Angel Reese, most people know her from last year and the rivalry between Iowa and LSU. Last year, LSU was triumphant. Those are the Tigers. And then this year, Caitlin Clark, as Ryan Ruocco of ESPN said, she's obsessed. Did all those points and beat LSU. So right after that, I guess there's a window. I didn't know this actually until this story. There's a window by which these stars can determine whether they want to go pro or stay in college for another year. Caitlin Clark had already announced weeks ago that she was going to go to the WNBA, and now Angel Reese did it, but she did it with a little bit of flair with a spread in Vogue. She has been a model before. They don't call her Bayou Barbie for nothing. So
Bayou Barbie.
Bayou Barbie, that's what they call her. So the fashion spread is fabulous. Gave her an opportunity to talk about how grateful she was for the time that she had, and also display her modeling technique, as it were. She's another one that has been able to take advantage of that law, rule, whatever it is, that college students or athletes
NIL, names, images, likeness. Yeah.
Can take advantage of endorsements, and she's got about over 1.2 million. Caitlin Clark has about 3.2 million at this point. So
I am stunned that you are as well versed in this. Did you ever follow women's college basketball before this year?
I just
I didn't, by the way, until this year.
I did. I was more increasingly every year because of the women. I've been always following the women the whole time. And I just did a piece for Greater Boston, our evening show, talking about now March Madness is really embedded in everybody.
Totally right.
Whether or not you're a huge fan. So the host said to me, well, do you watch the games? I don't actually watch the games. I watch the clips.
That's okay.
Because I can't stand the tension. It's too much for me. But I am so into all of the details about the game, the players, the coaches. I mean, I know everything about Kim Mulvey on the LSU Tigers. She's the flamboyant one with the boas and the pink and whatever. I'm all into Don Staley, who's up with the South Carolina Gamecocks. They are undefeated, so I expect them to be standing at the end. Of course, Iowa has to defeat whoever they're up against.
Tonight
UConn.
at 9:30, we have to stay up till.
So it could be a match in the end, I guess, between those two. We'll see. But all those 4 games are going to be incredible. And we know now, if you don't know, all the money is on the women's side. All the betting money, it's gone up like 200%. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying this is the reality. It's amazing. And you can't get a ticket at a normal price for the women's games.
Can I just add one number that I mentioned?
Very upsetting number.
No, we'll get to the upsetting number in a minute. This is a good number. The good number, I mentioned this the other day to, who were we talking to? Trenny.
Yes.
This is courtesy of a texter. I didn't look this up. That the average viewership for the Iowa LSU game was 12.3 million people. Not average. The number of people that watched was 12.3 million. The average viewership for the World Series of Baseball, their championship, was 9 million. I mean, it's really unbelievable. And the beauty of this is, I was worried a month ago when everybody was talking Caitlin Clark is going to be when she leaves. So there are a ton of young women, including that freshman out in California. I think Juju Watson, I think is her name. So this is the future. It's great.
You know what else too? When you look at these women's games now, I mean, I'm not an expert on women's basketball, but they're unbelievable. I mean, the moves and the guards and the ball handling dribbling and the passing. I mean to be sexist about it, but I think there was a lot of talk in 20 certainly years ago that women just weren't as exciting to watch as men. Well, that has changed. I mean, at least in in my book, and that's why I was going to get to the depressing thing that I thought was that Brittany Griner, who of course was in prison in Russia and had to go to Russia to play because she wasn't making enough money in the United States. Here she is, a big, huge megastar, and she's getting a 1-year deal for $150,000 in Phoenix.
Well, let's go back and talk about when she came back from Russia. It wasn't much better. It was $165,000. Let me just note that, because now I've become obsessed with the collegiate games. The money, generally, the top money for WNBA players is $240,000. Doesn't mean anything to Caitlin Clark. She's got $3 million going into the games and more. Ice Cube wants to give her $5 million. She hasn't said she's even thought about it yet. So those players that had an opportunity to maximize their likenesses will probably be okay, and that's fine. But the money still isn't there for women's sports, and that's all women's sports. It's not just, with the exception of maybe soccer, they fought to get those contracts equal. So it's something that has to happen. I think a lot of it has to do with the slow, finally it's happening, but the slow televising of the games. And people have been searching for them, and finally the outlets that broadcast them, I mean, Trini can say this better than me, woke up and said, oh, people want to see this, so I guess we should broadcast it.
Well, I don't think we can blame Charlie Baker for this, because I think this is pre-Baker. Everybody knows he's the head. He's now the head of the NCAA. But what I read the other day, which I wasn't aware of, is that while, for example, men's basketball, college basketball championship, there's a separate contract. Women's basketball is folded into 40 other sports, meaning sort of the also-ran sports. And I don't know, by the way, we have to reach out to, in fact, can we reach out to Charlie Baker over the weekend? And it's time to have him on the show, obviously.
Yeah, be interesting.
But I think that history is going to change because, as you say, the excitement level. I'll say something else I said to Trini. I can only name one player in men's Final Four, and I can name 5, 6, 7, and I think I'm not atypical.
Good point.
No, it's really good.
It is a good point.
Important.
That's a good point. I will also point out that with regard to March Madness specifically, it was 1939 for the men. The women did not come on until 1982. So
is that right?
under the yes, that's right. So now we have, that's a big gap of catching up for people to even pay attention to what they were doing.
By the way, there was
I'm sorry, go ahead, Margaret. Beat Steph Curry in the 3-point.
I can't remember her name.
I mean, Steph Curry is a superstar in the NBA, right? And
who's the one that
recently? That 3-point shooting contest, but it was really close.
Oh, right, yeah.
But what Trini said the other day, and I'm sure she's right, that as great as that woman was, and can we find out her name so we're not as disrespectful as we're being? I just can't remember it. Caitlin Clark is going to be shoved into that spot. It's going to be. You can imagine the viewership. Clark versus Curry in a 3-point shooting thing.
She's got the highest record for men and women. She beat his collegiate record, and she beat Lynette Woodard's collegiate record. I think Lynette Woodard was a teammate of Don Staley. So,
Wow.
Here's a text
Sabrina Ionescu is her name. Our apologies to Sabrina Ionescu.
Here's a text from Mike in Walpole. I think Clark and Reese could do for the WNBA what Bird and Magic did for the NBA in the 80s.
I think that's true.
I think that's true, too. But look at all the excitement about the Las Vegas Aces, rather.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of excitement in the WNBA now, so it'll carry over. I think the women in March Madness have just been so excited, and I think everybody's into it now. Even if it's a little bit, you're into it.
It's going to be a wild night tonight.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm doing.
No, I'm just too nervous.
I got to stay up to like midnight for this, which is not happening. So
I'll be hysterical. I can't do it.
No Labels was formed a couple of years ago by Joe Lieberman and a bunch of other people. This woman, Holly Page, who was on NPR this morning, we'll play some sound from her in a minute. And the theory was that people, even before people didn't want Trump versus Biden, people are upset with the two-party system. They want more bipartisanship. The notion was we're going to run a president of one party candidate and a vice presidential candidate of another party. And it turned out the concept was appealing. A lot of Democrats were really upset that it was going to take votes away from Joe Biden in particular. But ultimately, they came a cropper. What happened there?
they just decided they can't do it. That everybody turned them down. All the obvious people, like when I say the obvious people, that would be Joe Manchin. Remember how he was saying, "I'm thinking about it, maybe, whatever."
Marjorie.
So he didn't do it. He said no. Larry Hogan, no. Chris Christie, I guess he was trying to figure out if he could mount a third party run, and he said no. But I was very interested in, I'm trying to think of who said this, that he was concerned that he didn't want to be a part of a situation that would help propel, this is his comment, former President Trump
Who
back
said
into
this?
It's somebody in this article that I'm blanking on right now.
Well,
I'm
while
trying to
you're
find
looking
it.
for this,
yeah.
this was an incredible statement. Holly Page is the co-founder of
Yeah.
No Label. She's on NPR this morning, and I can't remember who did the interview, but they're basically saying this was a defeat. You couldn't even find a candidate who's willing to run, and here's Holly Page's answer.
We actually are seeing our effort as a victory. I mean, considering it was a relatively small group of people, none of us held elected office currently. We got together and we decided to answer the call of the voters. They wanted something different, and we did everything we could.
Can we
to give
cut
it
that
to
off?
them.
You know, by the way, I was wrong. When I led the effort for the graduated income tax in 1994, and we lost by a narrow 71 to 29 margin, I should have said what she said. We see that as a victory. I mean, see it as a victory. You couldn't even get a damn candidate to run on your thing. But having said that, and I was not supportive of this time because I do worry it would help elect a guy who will probably destroy democracy, small d democracy, in my opinion. Do you have any thoughts? I don't know if you've done commentaries on this. We talk about it all the time. Something's got to be wrong with the system that regularly whether you like Biden or Trump is not the issue.
That's
the majority of people don't want them to be the candidates. What's wrong with the system? The majority of people didn't want Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So what's screwed up with our system here?
A lot of people who are out there working right now to get money out of the system would tell you it's the money. Because if you can't navigate those very narrow channels and even smaller pools of very wealthy people who line up on either side, they're not doing third-party candidates. They're doing one side or the other. That's the end of the game, because it's just so difficult for somebody to be truly independent, meaning that they could draw from sources across the political spectrum. Right. And I think also No Labels has a problem, I think, in that you need someone with some name recognition, but yet anybody with name recognition has had a label so that they're so identified with that to try then to put them in a no label situation, you know, a lot of people are suspicious. Like, I don't really believe that you're following a no label mission to sort of stay in the middle. So again, you need someone, wherever they appear, who would be able to draw the kind of money or be independently wealthy, I guess, and fund themselves. But so far, those people who decided to do that were so way off. You remember that guy? I did a whole commentary on him. Like, sit down. What was his name? Tom something. He must have done 5 billion ads. He was funding himself. It was.
He ran in the Democratic primary for president last time.
For God's sake, sit down
what is
somewhere.
His name? We had him on the show actually a couple of times.
And I just said, really, seriously, no. I mean, I'm just saying there would be maybe somebody if he tried an independent
Tom Steyer, thank you.
Thank you. Good for God's sake.
This is pathetic. We don't know Sabrina Ionescu. We don't know Tom Steyer.
Because you can't remember.
Who are these people?
He was everywhere.
Who am
I think he had
why am I here?
Yeah,
exactly. Thank you very much.
So I don't know what would happen if he tried to be truly independent and, he'd had the money to do it. But I thought
that's pretty upsetting, though. The only person that could pull this off is somebody who can self-finance, like Ross Perot or
Don't
Tom
you think?
Steyer. I agree. It's unfortunate.
You know, when you brought that up, Callie, we used to talk about getting money out of politics all the time.
I know.
And it's kind of like now we've just kind of given up.
Citizens United. Supreme Court changed the game.
Yeah,
that's right.
But when you think of because that would change everything, wouldn't it?
It would.
If we had self-funded candidates, or
if it really truly came from the people like it's supposed to, because you have the high rollers who are in the end in control, there you are. I don't know how you get around that. And look, they have the right to put their money wherever they want. I'm not ragging on them. I'm just saying and they know how to play that game. That's just what it is at this point.
By the way, we had Bill Bradley on the other day, who obviously was a legendary basketball player, also U.S. Senator, ran for president. One of the things we didn't bring up with him, speaking of money and politics, he actually proposed a constitutional amendment that wouldn't allow you to self-fund. I mean, self-fund to a point, but a billionaire couldn't give him or herself $100 million to run, that there would be limits on their contributions too. It obviously never went anywhere. We're talking to Callie Crossley.
Callie, what's going on with the Mashpee Wampanoag Indian tribe?
Well, there had been some discussion back and forth, and a group of Taunton residents particularly were saying that the tribe did not have ancestral rights, and the tribe had already initiated plans to put a casino on its land, which the tribe claims sovereignty rights, and there have been plaintiffs from Taunton that said, no, you don't have it. There's a technicality there. And the U.S. Court of Appeals said, you don't have standing. And the Supreme Court now has said they do have ancestral rights, go forward. And they wouldn't even hear the complaint from the plaintiffs who initially brought it and questioned whether or not they did have rights to the land. So the plans for the casino have been stalled for a while. Don't know whether that will happen at some point or not. But for this moment, the Supreme Court has said, with some finality, this is your ancestral land, the end.
By the way, just so people understand the law around these kind of things, is once there's been a determination, in this case by the highest court, as you said a minute ago, that it is your land, you have sovereignty. While there was that casino commission, or it probably still is, or the gaming commission, whatever the hell it's called, that said there'd be a maximum of 3 casinos plus a slots parlor. We have 3, how many casinos do we have? Encore, Springfield, Plainview, 2 plus a slots parlor. When a Native American tribe gains sovereignty, they're not subject to state rules, meaning if they choose to build a casino, they choose to build 9 casinos, they can do that, which I think would be unfortunate on their land, because I don't think we need it anymore, but it's their right to do whatever the hell they please. So that's one of the, and by the way, the guy who, I think to his credit, who is the head of the tribe, has said during this litigation, that's not our top priority. Our top priority are things like adequate health care, decent schools. I mean, worried about the daily needs of his constituents rather than building a casino, which obviously is a huge money maker. I think they only have 2,600 members of the tribe, so obviously it's be huge money for each of them. But he's worried about daily necessities, which I think is an admirable thing.
These are the Mashpee Wampanoags, too, not to be confused with the Wampanoags on Martha's Vineyard.
So, Callie, this guy who's done something absolutely necessary, it seems, from what I've read, doesn't want it called Black GPT, but it is Black GPT.
Well, I had never heard of this guy until
Nor had I.
This is very interesting. His name is John Passmore. Still didn't mean anything to me, but his history is too long to go into. But let's just say he has a very rich history of both working in fintech and also in tech. And he's Black. He's both his parents, and he came from the islands, the Caribbean. And he realized as he started to pay attention to, he sold many businesses, let's just say that. So obviously his wealth and his interests are broad, and they have increased in this area over time. So now it all came together when ChatGPT came out, and he thought, the basis for this that everybody's talking about, that they're upset with artificial intelligence, is that it takes everybody's stuff, proprietary stuff, to learn on. And the models by which the computer system, or however you're describing that system, the GPT system is learning on, are all models that fundamentally use only white people as the model. So we've talked about a couple things here, I think, where with the young Asian woman put in, what does a scientist look like? And it came back with, some a white guy with a whatever that you would, all the stereotypes you would imagine, and it didn't
because the inputs determine the outputs.
That's right.
Obviously.
That's right. And so that's what the computer understands, or that's what the tech understands to be, because that's what the images are that they're modeling on. So what he has created, and what he says is, there is a rich, obviously, history and culture of folks of color that has to be inputted into the system, so that when the model decides to spit out something, it's not just the only thing that they know. what's interesting about it is that he's partnered with some historically black colleges and other sources where there's a lot of culture, and he's going to pull from all those sources and, get these inputs going. And let's see. Oh, one of his biggest backers, people in this area will know, is Esther Dyson. That may be a name that means something to folks, but she was out front with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. She's one of the biggest names in tech, and she is on board with backing what his company's called Latimer. Or maybe it's called.
Just don't call it ChatGPT, he says.
Blackjack.
BlackGPT,
Don't
I'm sorry.
call that. He said that's not what it is.
Even though that is what it
Right.
is, in any case.
So he's got all the stuff to make it happen, background and data training and tech and, having run many companies and sold them. And
it's
we'll
unbelievable.
see.
It's sort of like facial recognition. Oops, we forgot to put people of color.
Right.
I mean, it's stunning and good for him for filling a hole that shouldn't
So
exist.
interesting. Yeah.
What are you doing Sunday night?
Sunday night, we are talking about pop culture. There's a lot of it going on. Of course, we'll spend some time with my pop culture experts who are both college professors, Michael Jeffries from Wellesley and Karen Wong from Harvard, looking at the Beyonce impact, of course. But we're also talking about this AI piece because the 200 musicians just signed a letter saying you cannot use our material to replace us. And so we got into a deeper conversation about, however, as we know, some musicians have already used AI in a responsible way. And how do you draw the line? What's going to happen? So some of those kinds of conversations. Also looked at Oprah's weight loss special. What kind of impact culturally does that make? And many, many other topics. We're also talking, it's a very powerful, eye-opening book called Relinquished, The Politics of Adoption and the Privilege of American Motherhood by a qualitative sociologist named Gretchen Sisson, which would sound very dull and boring, but she interviewed these women who have been in the adoption process, mostly birth mothers, but also other folks along the process. It is really kind of messed up. It's messed up. There are so many things that need to be fixed that people sometimes assume are legal or not. So there's some traumatic aftermath for a lot of folks with some possible, it seems simple that if there were focus on it, but it's just been done the same way. And a lot of adoption not agencies, but brokers are taking advantage of these loopholes. So anyway, it's a very powerful and eye-opening book about adoption today.
We'll be listening.
Yeah.
Callie Crossley, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here, 89.7 at 6 o'clock. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And Callie, of course, co-hosts the GBH Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 on 89.7 GBH. And it's going to air from the library.
Relationships between siblings can be complicated and fraught.
I just didn't know who she really was, and I just didn't know how to have a relationship with her moving forward because I was so hurt.
So more adults are now going to therapy with their siblings to try to mend those relationships. I'm Ari Shapiro, How Sibling Therapy Works and Its Benefits on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Bryant University, where students can blend science and business to help shape the future of healthcare. Bryant is dedicated to helping empower the next generation of innovators. Learn more at bryant.edu. And Owens Corning of New England, helping homeowners create living space using the Owens Corning basement finishing system for over 20 years. More information at ocboston.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. I am live at the Boston Public Library. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We have no idea where Marjorie is, but we know she's sort of here. We're joined now via Zoom by Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther. He called in the other day, like 2 days ago, from Abu Dhabi. Today he is apparently in London. Apparently, we're going to find in a minute, he's on the case, of course, of the Marchioness of Chambalay. Christopher, it's great to, whoever she is. Hi, Christopher, how are you?
Okay. Good day, Governor. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
Well, you left out some ports of call for Christopher Muther because this piece you wrote about the Ritz-Carlton's yacht is bylined St. Bart's. So la-di-da-di-da. But this is for you, Jim.
What's that?
For people that can't stand cruise ships, apparently this is a ship for Jim. The Ritz-Carlton yacht is for people like Jim who can't stand cruises. So tell us all about this luxurious boat.
This is something we're going to see more of in the coming years, which is hotels branding cruise ships, and as a way also to kind of differentiate cruise ships. Because when you think about a cruise ship, it already basically is a hotel on water. What Ritz-Carlton has done is they've taken their kind of posh model of a hotel, a boutique hotel, or a flotel, as I've called it, and I need to register that trademark before someone steals it. And they, put it on the water. So this is a small ship. This is under 300 people, just shy of 300. And there's no big pool, there's no water slides, there's no casino. It's just a very sleek ship. Now I say ship because technically
And when you say posh, I mean, let's get a little detail on the staterooms there, if you can call them staterooms. What's your sleeping quarters situation?
my room had a dining room table. It had a little living room area. It had a bathtub, and I slept in a king size bed. And I had a double size balcony that I woke up in the morning and could look at whatever blue Caribbean port we were in.
Okay, because usually I've only been on a cruise once, but I could barely turn around in the shower in the cruise. I mean, you were smashed in there like sardines, and if you don't have a window, I think you get claustrophobic really quickly. So this is a totally different experience.
When we say hotel room, this really was a hotel room at sea, and not just a run of the mill. There's a florist on board this ship. So that way there are fresh flower arrangements in sort of the common areas in your room. You might come back and there's new flowers, or there's some treat from the French pastry chef, or of course your morning bottle of champagne, because you cannot through a day without your morning bottle of champagne.
Exactly.
Christopher, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I'm thinking about this. If the globe ever goes under, you're the reason. I'm thinking about it. You were in Abu Dhabi 2 days ago. You were on a cruise ship for $5,300 for 5 days, and then you're in London like a day later. Who's paying for this stuff?
Jim, I thought we had an agreement where we would keep these things a little hush-hush.
That's right.
I'd maybe bring you some cruise ship champagne once in a while.
Yeah, so
before we go from the smallest yacht cruise to the largest in a second, before Callie Crossley walks out of the studio, she asked us to ask you, how does the Ritz with 298 maximum capacity compare to the Virgin cruise ships? Do you know or do you not know? That's what she wanted me to ask you.
I mean, capacity-wise, the Virgin ships are somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, I think. 1,000, yes.
Okay.
I mean, a normal cruise ship, I took a photo when I was in port once, and it was next to a Princess cruise ship, which was, I think, 3,000 passengers, which is considered like a mid-sized ship. And to see them side by side is pretty dramatic. I think Virgin is about 3,000.
So, Callie, there's your answer to the question. Now, how about this largest cruise ship, which to me is about the foulest thing I've ever read about in my life. 7,600 people on the damn boat.
Yeah, I went on at the time what was their largest, and I think that was 5,800 on the boat. And for me, it was pretty overwhelming. It's a similar model, and they've just like turned the volume up to 13 on it. And so it really is. Just when you think it can't get bigger, it does. And there's a demand for it, obviously, because they continue to build them. And this is the first of their Icon series. So there will be more of this size coming, and they will be larger.
But why is it so terrible for the climate? This piece from Bloomberg talks about that.
Yeah, it's, cruise ships in general aren't necessarily the best thing for the environment. And, they've made like huge strides in terms of wastewater and recycling and things like that. The one thing they haven't been able to do much with is the carbon emissions. And they're working on that. But when you have a giant cruise ship, you've got a lot of carbon emissions coming out of this thing. And then on the top of it, you have people flying to get to their cruise port. So it ends up being a bit of like a double whammy. But the cruise ships themselves, and the Icon of the Seas is easy to point because it's such a huge ship, but all ships do this. I wrote a story a couple of months ago about cruise ships going to Antarctica and the effect they're having on Antarctica. So and those are not big ships, but the results can be seen in the snow in Antarctica. So it's one of those things where there hasn't been enough consumer outrage to make those changes happen.
We're talking to Christopher Muther, and we got to tie this up soon because he's on his way to Monaco for dinner.
Okay, just one quick question. So it's $5,000 for 5 days on the Ritz-Carlton yacht. If you go on one of these massive 5,000, it's a lot cheaper.
$7,600.
Dollars?
People.
No. I mean the cost, the money.
What is the cost?
Yeah, they're a lot cheaper.
Yeah, like maybe $1,000, $1,500, something like that.
No.
Oh, I mean less than that probably.
No, but for 5 days.
They're cheap.
For 5 days. What are you eating? Food out of a can?
We're talking about Icon of the Seas now, Jim.
Yes, we're talking Icon of the Seas. They're cheap. That's why people are love to go on them all the time because they're inexpensive.
Sounds like we're talking about Chicken of the Sea. Wait a second. It does not cost $1,000 for 5 days on the Icon, whatever the hell it is, does it?
I'm going to look it up now because I have not booked that one. I usually go on cruises that are no less than 5,000 for 5 days.
Yeah, I think you can get a pretty good deal on a Royal Caribbean boat if you don't mind being with 5,000 people.
They're checking. Our colleagues are checking.
An hour to get on the ship and an hour to get off the ship. Okay, but let's move on from this.
Wait. No, let's not move on from this.
Oh, okay.
I know we've had this discussion before. Explain to me why anybody likes. I mean, I see it like as a floating prison, whether it's 298 people or 7,600. What appeals to you, Mr. Travel Writer, Christopher Muther? What do you like about a cruise?
I don't see him on a big Royal Caribbean. I really don't.
So you're going to find this surprising, Jim, and also you'll understand why. This is the difference between you and I. I like going on cruise ships because I like the people I meet.
Oh, that's the problem. That's right, exactly. And
Yeah,
that is the difference.
Whereas you despise humanity, I kind of embrace them sometimes.
Okay, that's a fair answer. Thank
But
you.
you know what? One of the good things about cruise ships is if you've got kids that are older enough to be off on their own, you get 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old. It's great because you can get a break from these kids. There's no place to go unless they jump off the boat, which they probably won't. They can run around and go to the hamburger joint and the playroom for the kids, go in the slides. So you can have a vacation where you're not constantly have to entertaining your children. I think that's a big thing.
Wait 1 second. Jamie just looked this up, or Zoe or somebody.
Yeah.
Royal Caribbean is $479 for how many days?
7 nights in Western Caribbean.
7 nights and you get food?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the
get
crap
food.
they expect you to eat for $479?
No, it's not bad. The buffets are pretty good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. All right. So tell us, it doesn't seem particularly spring-like today, but I guess it's going to get better next week. So what should we do if we want to get away this spring? What do we need to do to know where to go? Are we too late to book, etc.?
Well, I mean, I am every year I'm faced with the same question from colleagues and friends when it comes up to school break time, which we're coming up with in April, very, very soon. And it's sort of how can I save money? And my first piece of advice is don't go anywhere when everyone else wants to go to the same place.
Yeah.
I realize it's not helpful for people with school children who have a designated vacation block. So then I usually say, go somewhere that is unexpected. Like, don't go to Florida because everyone else and their Aunt Minnie is going to be trying to get down to Florida.
I had an Aunt Minnie.
Instead, may she rest. Instead,
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I would suggest, say, like, go to Montreal, go to Iceland for a few days. You can get like a really good deal to go to Iceland for a few days. It's like a short flight. It's more fun than Florida, at least for me. You want to go swimming, then hop into like one of the hot spring lagoons there. It's, just think creatively is what I say. But on a more practical note, you have to be flexible with your travel date. So for instance, don't plan to leave on a Saturday or come home on a Sunday. Sunday's the most expensive day to fly.
Is it?
Like any time of year. So always try to like leave on if you leave on like on a Wednesday or a Thursday, you'll save like 20%. There are like all sorts of things. Just, you have to kind of think opposite of what people normally do and do that. And that's how you'll save money.
Christopher Muther, speaking of saving money, the fees really put me over the edge. My attitude, we've had this discussion, include everything in the damn fare and raise it and just let me pay once and then I'm done. That's not how they do it. All these fees they're making. I think I read in a story that baggage fees alone internationally, $33 billion for airlines or something like that.
Yes.
There's now dynamic pricing. Well, I don't know, remember which airline. It's sort of like surge pricing with ride share. So there's that. I'd love to know what you think about that. But whether it's just the increases which everybody's imposing or the dynamic pricing that this one airline is imposing, is the only way to avoid this is go through the nightmare of doing a carry-on?
Or go to a nudist colony for vacation.
Okay, fine.
One way to save on your...
That's a very good point. You'll be there next, I know. No, I'm serious. There's no way to save except to go through the torture of the carry-on, right?
Yeah, I don't go through the torture of the carry-on. I think that one of the best ways to do it is if you are a regular patron of an airline to get one of their credit cards. For instance, I have an airline credit card for one company and it allows me to check bags for free. And that's like one of the benefits of it. So that's my way around doing it because I don't bring carry-ons. But to go back to fees and surge pricing, let me tell you, this really sticks in my craw. Surge pricing for checked baggage, I think, is like one of the worst things I have ever heard.
Why?
It's already bad enough that. So I mean, you mentioned the billions of dollars that airlines already make from these fees, and now to kind of weasel around it further. So it's JetBlue is the one that's introducing it. And they're 100-something million in the hole last quarter because they're doing really poorly. So they keep throwing up these new fees. They sort of launched a new round of fee increases last month when they just increased their bottom line fee for a checked bag. And then, American, Delta, everyone followed because, if one does, everyone does. And now to do surge pricing it's just unbelievable. So the idea is that you are technically supposed to be saving money for services you don't use. That's the whole low-cost airline unbundling garbage. And to me, it is garbage. because you don't really end up saving money. What's advertised is an airfare that isn't a real airfare. And then on top of it, you're paying and paying. And I have expected that from British Airlines, from, really like low cost carriers. I mean, like European carriers. They've been doing that malarkey for a long time. And now it's becoming standard across the board. And, I suspect we'll start seeing it with other airlines as well, depending if there's much hue and cry about surge pricing. But we'll see. But again, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about this one.
We're talking to Christopher Muther, who I believe, as of the moment ago, is the only person other than Joe Biden ever used the word malarkey in a sentence. So that was really,
Christopher,
that was really impressive, actually.
JetBlue for a while was the darling and fair-haired flyer. What happened?
That is such a good question, Marjorie. And it really has been a series of bad managerial decisions. If you look at, there's, I think it's Wichita University. They have an airline quality rating that comes out every year. So about 10 years ago, JetBlue was consistently number one.
Yeah.
Last year, they were number 9.
Wow.
It's just they're plummeting. Their merger with Spirit was blocked. And at the time, I was making a joke like, JetBlue is going to turn into Spirit. They kind of already have. Not even Spirit has done surge pricing.
Wow.
So before we leave this topic, you said you really were passionate about this. You didn't, your words said it. You didn't show it in your demeanor, but I'll accept that you were passionate. What else in the travel thing puts you totally over the edge? I'm serious about this. What's the other thing that totally puts you over the edge, Christopher Muther, travel writer for the Boston Globe?
I'm going to give you a sneak peek of a story I'm going to write of something that puts me over the edge, which is how people exit airplanes.
Go ahead.
The idea that it becomes as soon as the plane lands, people stand up. It's like, why are you standing? You're not going to be leaving this plane for at least 20 minutes. You're just making it awkward. And then people standing and trying to get their carry-on luggage and whacking people on the head or elbowing someone in the eye. And then when people disembark from the plane, it should be row by row. And instead you have some people who are like just pushing their way up. They don't even have a connecting flight they're rushing to. They're just basically like, I don't know, a hyena that sees a piece of Jordan meat dangling in front of them.
Well, but one of the solutions to that, which is my pet peeve, is when somebody boards and they're going to the back of the plane and they stick their bag in the front of the plane. So when I get on near the front of the plane, I got to walk to the back of the plane to find a place for my overhead so that when the plane lands, and I want another word I've never used that you use, disembark. I have to fight my way through the people behind. You get what I mean? I mean, that would be a solution to the problem, saying you must use the overhead where you are, period. No?
Right. Or, perhaps airlines, I've made this argument before. You charge people to check a bag and you charge people for a carry-on and you make check-ons free. Wait, did I say that right?
No.
Carry-ons, you're charged for, check bags are free.
Okay.
That way it discourages people from wanting to bring a carry-on onto the plane. People get on the plane faster, they get off the plane faster. The world is a better place.
Wow.
Perhaps surge pricing goes away, and
that's beautiful.
And look, we've solved it right here on radio.
Listen to this text from Sarah in Waltham.
What'd she say?
Read the cost of cruises. Check out these stories of people deciding to retire on cruise ships because it's cheaper than retire at homes. Plus, you have all the support services and a great medical team. Jim's worst nightmare, but maybe not a bad idea with the cost of housing today. That's probably true.
Well, they could go to Guantanamo,
true.
too. What?
It's 100% true. There are lots of people who retire on cruise ships.
Okay. So, Christopher, I don't want to hear about that.
I was going to go to the granny flat. Maybe this is something I can explore, when
I think
time
you should
comes.
stick with the granny flat. Now, Christopher, you made an unusual request of our colleagues. You said you would like a minute and a half or so at the end of the segment to do something that I'm sure we're going to thoroughly enjoy. What would that be?
Well, I actually asked for 30 minutes, but I guess we'll do.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, there's an important historic event that I don't know it's getting the recognition that it deserves, which is tomorrow, April 6th, is the 50th anniversary of ABBA's debut of Waterloo on the Eurovision Song Contest. It was the night ABBA was introduced to the world. 50 years ago, Waterloo, they performed at the Eurovision Song Contest. First time Sweden ever won in the 20 years of Eurovision. But more importantly than all of that is we were gifted the Fab Four, which is ABBA and not the Beatles.
So do we have to play the song or something? Is that part of this deal?
Queued up, ready to go.
Okay, I guess that's great. That's horrible. Totally horrible. And by the way, for those who don't listen to our show, not only does Christopher love ABBA, or however ABBA, he traveled to London, again, at the expense of the Globe, all you subscribers out there, to see the phony ABBA, like ghosts, perform instead of, is that not true? What are they called?
They're called avatars.
Avatars, yeah.
Avatars.
They perform in a custom-built stadium in London. Coincidentally, I'm going to see them tomorrow night.
Are you really?
Oh, my God.
It will be my 4th time going.
That's really great.
And I have good news for you, Jim.
What's
which
that?
Is the ABBA Stadium. They're going to be building one in Las Vegas.
Are they?
Now you'll be able to see the avatars in the United States.
By the way, the only place in America worse than Las Vegas is Disney World. Can we agree on that? Obviously, yes.
I think Disney World is worse than Las Vegas. Anyway, yes.
Well, happy anniversary. I know it means a lot to you. And have you ever met any of those people?
I have not.
Why not? Why not?
Restraining orders, mostly.
Christopher Muther from London. It is great to see you as always. Thank you.
Good to
We've
see
been
you all.
speaking with Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther. Thank you so much, Chris. Have a great trip, or several trips, I guess, in his case.
Apparently.
After a quick break, GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen is here. He's going to tell us why a certain performer agreed to appear on Jared's culture show, but shunned Boston Public Radio.
Exactly.
Could it be something that Jim Browdy said? You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Congratulations, you just got accepted to college. Will that be cash, loan, or scholarship? That's a hard question, especially when schools are cagey about pricing.
It is so anxiety-inducing. Sometimes it just wakes you up at night.
I was stunned at what college was going to cost us.
We dig into that and the whole business behind higher ed on our podcast, College Uncovered.
It's kind of like having a financial colonoscopy.
Get College Uncovered wherever you get your podcasts.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Comcast, offering the Xfinity 10G network, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. Xfinity.com. And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Liz Cheney, Andrew Lloyd Webber, news anchor Chris Wallace, and artificial intelligence entrepreneur Oren Etzioni. BostonSpeakers.org.
I'm John the Claw Parker, engineer for Boston Public Radio, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR, what matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan, Jim Browdy, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Next Tuesday, Ask the Mayor. Michelle Wu will be with us for an hour from 11 to 12. Next Friday, Ask the General Manager of the T, that is, Philip Ang will join us Friday from 11 to 12. We're joined now at the desk by Jared Bowen, who apparently has stolen a guest from us, GBH News Executive Arts Editor and host of The Culture Show. It airs daily 2 o'clock right here at 89.7. And on Fridays, that would be today, It airs right here live at the Boston Public Library, so stick around for that. Hello there, Jared. How are you?
I'm well. This already feels very loaded, though.
No,
yes,
I mean, it is
does.
what it is.
Well, I'm dying to know about this performer who was so outraged by whatever we did on Boston Public Radio that he said drop dead to us and went right to the culture show. So do tell. I think we have some sound here.
Well,
and
let Jared
everything.
explain this first, because I'm not happy about it. Go ahead.
So this is like the Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer feud at
Maybe
ABC
we'll see.
about
Right. See what you say.
booking guests.
All right.
No,
Who is this guy, first?
So his name is Chris Fleming.
He's a comedian, allegedly.
He's a very, very funny comedian who had, I think, sold out shows at the Wilbur Theater last night.
That's what he says.
And so we started. I mean, I didn't go there and count the.
He was on our
filled
show
seats.
a couple of months ago. We invited him this time to be on our show. I believe he said no, and he went on your show.
He said no.
He said no and went on your
So
show.
he called the culture show and he said yes. Is that what?
Well, apparently, do you have him on the show?
We had him on the show.
Well, we didn't. So go ahead. What happened?
So we had a conversation about you.
We did?
We did.
Oh, then it's okay. Go ahead. What did we say about me?
So, I think we started talking about how you appear on television.
Yeah.
You want to hear
I
what you had
loved
to
it.
say?
I haven't heard it. I hadn't listened that day.
I'll let him say it.
Okay, go ahead.
You know how when he's on TV, he wears the button-up? We've talked about this, right? He's in like a three-piece suit, and then during the day, he's truly wearing an open Tommy Bahamas shirt, and the chest hairs out. Oh, no, I've seen it.
Whoops.
And he has a machete, I think, sometimes. I mean, the man's wild. The man's absolutely wild.
Marjorie has kept it real, though. Marjorie Egan.
Oh, of course Marjorie's kept it real. Marjorie probably takes a cute little hot air balloon to work every day. Oh, my God. Oh, now, Jim, please, Jim, keep it together. No, Marjorie, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, Western Mass, it's just... I did their show once, and she had maybe 16 printed 8x11 sheets of paper on me, and Jim was just like Ginsburg going off the dome.
Well,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I stole your guest, and I didn't steal your guest. Your guest came to me, and then it became all about you.
Well, that is okay then. I don't feel quite as bad about it. By the way, he's local. He's from here.
He grew up in Stowe.
Not only grew up in Stowe, maybe one of the funniest routines ever. When he's cleaning the house, getting ready for guests to come. I don't even know what that's called.
Gail Waters.
That's right. It's like 3 minutes prep for. It's just he's brilliant, and despite him screwing us, we're very fond of Chris
He was accurate
Fleming.
about the chest hairs, Jim. Many people have come to that in the
Thank
tech
you.
section. They're
Thank
upset
you.
by your outfits.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Comfort is my middle name, Marjorie.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Did you defend me at all? I'm curious because I didn't hear that particular day. You didn't play that part of it.
Well, no, we talked a little bit more, and I told him that I believe you do have a machete because I parked next to your Tesla in the parking garage,
Yeah.
and I see where you keep it in the back seat. So
Can I just tell you, Jared is so scared of my parking space. Let me just say this.
Oh, well,
I have the lead parking space in the second garage,
I
and on
had it
mornings,
once.
on mornings when Jared gets there before I do you park in the lead parking space?
No, we don't park in the lead parking
Okay,
space.
Exactly. I rest my case. He parks in number 2,
He doesn't have the
leaving the
lead-
space. What?
Wait a minute. You don't have the lead parking space.
Oh, yes,
You
I
have-
do.
You have taken it by arriving
yeah. I didn't mean
at
it was
7 in
given
the
to me,
morning.
but
That's right. You made it sound like it was your parking space.
Well, I guess de
That's
facto
right, because
it
you
is
know
mine.
who used to park there before you started parking there?
No, who?
Me.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well,
And
let's
then
move
I
on.
graciously gave it over.
Okay, so let's move on to something else. This story about graffiti, which I think a lot of us thought of as kind of terrible stuff.
Not me.
It's had a rebirth, and it's moved from, as the headline says in this New York Times piece, from eyesore to amenity. Tell us.
Well, it's kind of both, depending on where you're looking and how it's being done. This is really interesting. And so we have seen over the course of the last 20 years, or maybe even 30 or 40 years now, when you think of artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat in New York and Keith Haring in New York, who would do subway cars overnight, and then they'd drive into the train stations and then just be covered in art, what had been fairly pristine subway cars prior to that. But a lot of people always looked at this as graffiti, and you're destroying the landscape, you're destroying the neighborhood, and then it slowly began to change as neighborhoods began to embrace street art, or now, as many people just say, art. And this is the art you find on the sides of buildings. It's often commissioned. We see a lot of that here in Boston now. If you head up the Greenway right across from South Station, you see a giant mural that's commissioned every single year. A lot of other walls have been given over to people. There's the Punto Urban Art Museum in Salem, which is a whole neighborhood built around these beautiful murals. And this isn't just a Boston story. This is a London story. This is a Berlin story. This is a Miami story, where you find entire neighborhoods that have grown up around murals. However, it changes the dynamic of these communities. So this is what they're starting to find. So we see this in gentrification all the time, where the artists go, where the artists take over spaces like loft spaces or old warehouses, old mill buildings, where they bring the cool element, people follow, and then the money follows. It gets redeveloped, and then the artists are forced out. And this is kind of what's happening. It's definitely happened in Miami, where you see rents 83% higher than they were a number of years ago. In Berlin, the rent has doubled in districts where the murals have happened. So it's great, it's colorful, it's vibrant, it brings energy, but then it brings in gentrification.
You know, but you sent me to this place in Miami when I was in Florida last year. What's
Wynwood.
The name? Wynwood, which is essentially all murals. I mean, there is a museum, an outdoor museum of murals, but then they're all over public. And it is so, I mean, it's like having art in your house, on the wall of your building or whatever. And that 83% you talked about, I think the number was in Wynwood, the cost per square foot or something is 83% higher than it is in
other parts of
Miami because of the graffiti, the outdoor art, the art. It's fabulous.
So here's the counter to that. This is a really interesting story that just developed. There are these 3 high-rise towers in Los Angeles, and they got shut down. The construction was shut down. The developer ran out of money or something like that. So they sat there and sat there and sat there, and then artists figured out how to get into these buildings. Now, meanwhile, they're shells of buildings. They didn't finish all the finishings. There weren't other people living in there. And the artists got in, and night after night, they began painting the glass walls. So suddenly you had these towers rising up in Los Angeles that were giant murals reaching to the sky with the artists doing this. But here, there's been a backlash. There are a lot of people in Los Angeles who think it's a threat to the community. They feel unsafe. They're worried about their property values. So you can look at this 2 ways. That one, it's this giant, uninvited work of art in the sky, or there are people who want to be able to look out at Los Angeles, and maybe the twinkling skies, and if you can see through the smog, and look at the nearby Hollywood Hills and so forth, but now see that interrupted by these towers. So I love this dialogue that's happening right now. For those towers, it looks like they'll be cleaned up. The Los Angeles city has hired guards to prevent people from going in there anymore, so it'll change.
But by the way, let me just say, I'm looking at the image of it now. This is competent, but it's like subway graffiti. It's not art. I mean, I know, who am I to be saying that? But like the murals that we see around Boston, the murals we see in Miami and places like that, are just outdoor art on a wall or something. This is like they're painting, I mean, they're really competently done, but it's basically their tag and that sort of thing.
Well, I think there's that tension too, because here you have people offering free expression, unlike some of these other places we were just talking about, where gentrification happens and you have Sony coming in or Adidas coming in and commissioning their murals, and suddenly they're also saying, well, we want you to paint this for us. We want you to do it in this style.
We're talking to Jared Bowen from The Culture Show.
So we have a little sound from a kind of unusual interview between Gene Simmons of KISS and a interviewer, all about they're selling the catalog and the IP. What's this all about?
So I think that we are seeing the new iteration. Speaking of, you were just talking about ABBA with Christopher Muther.
It's the same deal, right? The avatars, right?
It's the same deal. So I think we're seeing this new iteration of what happens to groups when they reach a certain age and they're kind of done with the big touring, as KISS has been. And so they have just sold their entire catalog. We're used to this. We've seen this with others, the Beatles and other Springsteen, other catalogs. But now, as Marjorie, as you just said, they're turning over their intellectual property and also future development deals. And they've done this deal with the Swedish company Pop House Entertainment Group, which is one of the founders, is one of the members of ABBA. Oh. They're also the ones that created this ABBA experience that you were just talking about with Christopher Muther. And so it's, in some ways, it's about guarding your legacy, knowing that you're going to have these avatars who are going to be performing around the world when you're not, because you're kind of done with that.
Okay, so you love KISS, for argument's sake. Well, they're not dead. You love the Beatles, but other than that AI thing they did, they're never going to perform because obviously 2 of them are dead, 2 of them are alive. So would you prefer to see a fabulous cover band, or would you doing Beatles songs, or would you prefer to see the avatars of the original 4 members of the group doing their songs. How do you feel about that?
I think that the one thing that makes a difference for me is if you set aside your notion that they've sold out, and I'm not saying they have, people are accusing them of that. I'm not sure that they have, but knowing that they have had a stake in this and they're still participating in some regard, I think that makes a difference for me.
Why is that selling out any more than selling your CD? I mean, this is their intellectual property, and they're charging
because
somebody.
People are claiming, if you've sold everything off, now somebody else legally has the right to do with whatever they want with your material.
Oh, I see. So, but what's your favorite band? I don't even know what your favorite band is. What is it?
Probably U2.
Okay, so it's U2. So Bono and everybody else are dead, or they stopped performing. Answer the question. You prefer to see the members of U2 as avatars performing their greatest hits, or a fabulous, extraordinary cover band doing U2 stuff?
I think I'm more inclined with the avatars, but...
It's a good topic for the culture show, by the way.
It is a good topic for the culture show. I'll have Chris Fleming get right on that.
How about you, Marjorie? Which do you prefer?
You mean the real thing or an avatar?
No. A great cover band or avatars of a band that you loved that either isn't performing or the members are dead.
I don't know, but I don't know, but I do know that I really love seeing Girls from the North Country, which was basically Dylan's songs sung by somebody else.
Covers. They're covers, essentially, is what the play was.
In a theater production.
Yeah, I love that too.
Now that may be because Bob Dylan, isn't the best voice in the world, and the people that sing his songs were fantastic, but it didn't bother me.
Well, that's the other part. You get this iteration now because there'll also be a biopic likely coming out of this, a documentary, and then again this Avatar Kiss experience, not unlike U2 in their big dome, although they were performing live, or the ABBA experience that Chris Muther is attending for the 140th time. You will get many iterations and interpretations of their legacy.
Okay, so speaking of musicals, I was
can't leave yet. We want to play the Gene Simmons weird interview.
Okay,
yes,
play some sound. Go ahead.
This was this Australian interview with Gene Simmons where he starts sticking his tongue out.
Well, that's what he does. That's
catching the interviewer off guard.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who do I admire more than myself? Nobody. I'm spectacular.
That's great.
Are you really?
Oh, I'm stunning.
I should have known it already, but this was about to get very weird.
Well, I'm really glad we played that. Added a lot to the conversation.
I loved it.
Okay, we're talking to Jared Bowen. So I saw Company Wednesday night. You saw Company, and it didn't bother me, again, that your seats were 4 rows further ahead than mine. I got over that by the next morning without any problem. What'd you think? We had 4 performers who were spectacular an hour or so ago or something. What'd you think?
Yeah, I really like this show because I don't know how much you talked about I'm sure you talked about everything they've done with this show, which is making
gender
it so
swapping
different.
and
So, this, I think, was Stephen Sondheim considered one of his most perfect shows in writing this story about Bobby, a man turning 35 and all of the people in his life wanting him to settle down and get married. And then when Marianne Elliott, this extraordinary director who did War Horse and Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime and the most recent adaptation of Angels in America on Broadway, where she really stripped it down, it was just immensely powerful. When one of her colleagues thought, well, maybe you should think about making Bobby a woman, really ran with that idea and just brought incredible new life and layer and texture to this. Because if you're looking at a woman in 2024 who's turning 35 and the biological clock is ticking and people are probably more apt to tell a woman how she should be living her life and whether she should be married or single and what it means to be single, it changes the whole dynamic. And so Stephen Sondheim was completely on board with her for this idea. Also, just a side note, she was one of the last people to spend any time with him. She was with him the weekend before he died, just days before he died, talking about this new revival of Company.
Right before it opened, by the way.
In New York, because she had done it in London, then they considered it more and then brought it to New York. The other great thing they did was change this couple who, one of them is in abject panic about getting married. He doesn't want to get married. Wasn't that a great,
one of the
fabulous
great
number?
scenes in the...
And she sent Stephen Sondheim an email saying, sit down, have a drink, I want you to consider maybe we make this a gay couple. And I think it was probably a little prickly for Stephen Sondheim because for years people said, well, Bobby is gay and this is the only reason he's not getting married. And Stephen Sondheim said, I wrote this. This is a story about a straight man. But he had to deal with that forever. But he loved what she saw because she brought in this actor to do this part overnight. She recorded it, sent it to Sondheim. So he wrote her back an email that said, sit down, have a drink. I'm actually okay with this. And they worked together on it. By the way, that actor was Jonathan Bailey, who is in Broadchurch and Bridgerton and will be in the big Wicked movie that's coming out this fall.
You know what's amazing to me, by the way, which shows, this is not a criticism. I'm a huge fan of Don O'Coin, who writes the reviews. He's a critic for the theater critic for the Boston Globe. I read his review this morning, and one of the things he was critical of was the scene where a couple that Bobby is visiting are getting stoned. And he thought it was such an anachronism and just Don did, out of date and that sort of thing. At least it seemed to me, maybe with the exception of the gay guy who didn't want to get married at the last minute, the audience went wild for this thing. Meaning there's a disconnect. And again, no criticism of O'Coin or the audience. The audience went wild for it, and Don felt it was, sort of passé. It was sort of, it didn't age well kind of thing,
I love that scene in particular, and I can tell you exactly why. Not that I'm in a straight relationship and I understand these dynamics, but you saw a husband and a wife trying to get stoned. One gets a little more silly than the other, and you see the irritation that starts to set in because couples have issues with the other's behavior, and that was just teased out so realistically,
I thought so
beautifully, and hilariously. I thought.
I was laughing pretty hard myself. We're talking to Jared Bowen.
So what's going on at the ICA, Jared?
This is a really fantastic show of Firle Baez, who was born in the Dominican Republic only in 1981, and already she's getting a retrospective at the ICA. You might remember a couple of years ago, the Watershed space, which is the large open-air space across the harbor. Great, really super fun to take a water taxi to go there. They gave the space over to Firle Baez a couple of years ago, and she created this underworld immersive experience as if you were entering into the water and going to the Sanssouci Palace, this famed Haitian palace that ultimately turned into a militant state. But anyway, so she is somebody who is beautiful in the way she creates her work, whether it's painting or these immersive structures or to some degree printmaking. And we see this span of her work as she, again, is a gorgeous painter, very much inspired by art history, technically beautiful, proficient. But what she often does is bring history to the fore. As Ava Raspini, the curator of the ICA, said, she's making history painting for our time. One of the most interesting things I think she's done is she took these books that were deaccessioned basically from a library, and they were all books that told the history of Hispaniola, but they were factually incorrect. So she takes pages out of these books, and she doesn't erase the history. She's not destroying them, but instead she paints over them. So she's bringing her point of view to this history that is wrong. And so you see this in a lot of her work, these great, great layers. But as I say, I think there are two reasons to appreciate her work. One, because of just how gorgeous they are. You can spend so much time just being dazzled by them, but then the more time with them you spend, the more you get to think.
By the way, we should have said company is at the Citizens Bank Opera House till the 14th. How long is this at the ICA?
It just opened, and it's going to be on view there through September 2nd.
Great. What are you doing in 47 minutes?
In 47 minutes, we will do our week in review, our Arts and Culture Week in review with Edgar and Callie. We'll talk about Lizzo quitting and then unquitting. We'll talk about, I don't know if you've heard, this huge backlash for Saturday Night Live and the TikToker who said that Saturday Night Live has never hired, quote, unquote, a hot woman to be on the show. So we'll dismantle that and what that means and lots of other great things.
They haven't?
Well,
Right.
Why don't you call in? Oh, they're not going to take your call. Really, I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
And why is someone taking this?
Good-looking women, Kate McKinnon, or
Well, you're exactly making the point. I mean, it's just
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So who cares what he said? Or she said. Who cares? Well, why does someone care?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, we will. That's a great tease there.
They're very close to the vest on this culture show. Have you noticed that, Jim? They don't want to tell you too much of what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sick of it, too. How about you?
Okay, Jared, thank you very much.
And he steals our guests to begin with. We know that. Obviously, Jamie, did we get Chris Fleming on the show? No, we did not.
He did not.
Did Jared get him on the show? Yes, he did.
Did I steal him?
That is called stealing a guest.
No,
and by the way,
not answering.
Next time he's on the show, we're going to destroy this guy. Chris Fleming, not you. Chris Fleming. Don't tell him. Just invite him next time he's in town.
Well, I appreciate
we'll take
you
care
not
of.
destroying me.
No, we're fairly fond of you. Good to see you, Jared Bowen. Let's hear for Jared.
It's a good thing, Jared.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because let me tell you.
The other night, I went screaming down Washington Street, Jim,
Oh, you do. It's very
as you
nice.
were walking to the theater.
He
Yeah.
carried me to my seat, which is really, really kind with his guest that night. It was very good. Thank you. Nice to see
We've
you.
been speaking with GBH News Executive Arts Editor and host of The Culture Show, which airs every day right after 2, the new 2 o'clock news right after us. It's going to be at the library today, so if you're already there at the library, you've got a big treat coming from 2 to 3. Thank you, Jared. After a quick break, Shirley Young from the Boston Globe on the plummeting stock price of Trump's social media company, True Social. Wow. That's next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, we had some trembles in Massachusetts today, with residents across the state feeling the effects of this morning's earthquake in New Jersey. The group that organizes the Boston Marathon says it's taking steps to prevent a repeat of last year's incident, where police stood between runners of color and fans cheering them on. Plus, we'll hear from a local astrophysicist on what we can expect with Monday's eclipse. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Discovery Museum in Acton, inspiring learning through hands-on science. A new exhibit exploring the properties of cause and effect featuring balls, ramps, and chain reactions is now open. DiscoveryActon.org. And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The mayor joins us for an hour on Tuesday, 11 to 12. The general manager of the T, Phil Eng, joins us for an hour to take your questions, by the way, and ours, on Friday from 11 to 12. So we hope you, and by the way, if you come here, you can ask a question face-to-face, which I think is the best way to do it. We're joined now by Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young. She also hosts the great podcast, Say More with Shirley Young. New episodes every Thursday. Hi, Shirley. Hi.
Hello, Shirley Young. So, speaking of the podcast, Say More, which is really fun, and in this case, it's really moving. You spoke with Rainey Aronson-Roth. She is the big deal, the producer over at, well, she is Frontline.
She's the boss.
Kind of runs the show over at Frontline.
She's one of you at GBH.
She is.
Yes. Frontline, which is, yeah, that's right, produced across the street from us at the GBH television side. 20 Days of Mariupol just won an Academy Award, and you had Rainey on your show, Say More, Shirley, and talk to her about 20 Days in Mariupol. Here it is.
Poignantly enough, like my son is now 17, right? Because he has lived, and that child died, right, at 16, just playing soccer. And I think it's those simple, tragic moments that are just those human moments, right, that take you inside conflict in a way that hopefully gets you to wake up.
So what did you talk with Rainey?
So Rainey was one of the producers of 20 Days in Mariupol, and it's a story. It's gripping. It's a really hard documentary to watch. You know, I started watching it. I had to stop. It took me 2 or 3 times to watch it. You guys probably have seen it too.
Yeah. No, we see it. Marjorie and Andrew Cabral sitting in for me had the director on.
Right, Mstislav Chernoff.
Yeah.
And so it's a story of 3 journalists. They work at the AP, and they were the last journalists in Mariupol when the war started. And it's so gripping and dramatic and harrowing. You feel like you're right there at the beginning of a war, and you see this war unfolding. And what Rainey was talking about was one of the most dramatic scenes in the documentary is that a father is going to the morgue, the hospital, to identify the body of his 16-year-old son, who was killed after he was playing soccer outside, and a bomb or a shelling came through, and he was gone just like that. And so, Rainey was reacting to some of the footage she saw when she was reviewing this movie. And Mrs. Falk came to, you guys know this, came to Boston, came to GBH as part of the editing. And there was another GBH, is it Michelle Meisner? Meisner? She was also a producer here at Frontline working on this movie. And she also won an Academy Award.
You know, every single time I read that the Speaker of the House, Johnson, and others are reluctant, if not refusing, to provide any aid to Ukraine, I think this every time, because this film is the most powerful thing I've seen, is send them this damn film, lock them in a room and make them watch this thing and see if any human being, even them, can say we should not help these people survive and protect their democracy. It is brilliant and painful, this film.
Just one quick thing to add on that. I mean, that's one of the things that struck me so much when they got the Academy Award and Rainey was there to accept the Oscar with the other people involved in 20 Days in Mariupol. That at the time I first saw it, and it was so upsetting about the horrible ways the Russians attacked this town, you thought, well, thank God we're there for them, the United States. Thank God we're going to.
That's right. We were then.
We're going to send them money, and
You're
we're going
right.
to help, and we're going to do everything we can. And I just can't get it through my head that we've given up.
Well, they care more about Trump than they do about other human beings and democracy. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Helping them.
And that's what was striking watching this documentary now, because this was filmed in 2022, and we're 2 years later, and it doesn't seem like we're any closer to the end of the war.
Oh, Putin was right. We give up, and he was right, wasn't he?
I mean, now we've moved on to Trump. We're very focused on what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now.
As we should be, but we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Can I also mention one more thing about this week's podcast? So not only did I get a chance to interview Rainey Aronson Roth, but we actually just dropped a bonus episode in Say More as well. Nancy Barnes, the editor of the Globe, she actually also interviewed Mstislav Chernoff, the Ukrainian filmmaker who won an Oscar. He gave that amazing speech saying that he wished we never made this film. I wish I wasn't accepting this award. I wish the war had not even started. Anyway, so Nancy's he also won a Pulitzer Prize last year, Pulitzer Prize in Public Service for their coverage of Ukraine. And so Nancy is on the Pulitzer board. So she had also interviewed Chernoff as well. And so now you get to hear from Rainey, and now you hear from the director himself. So that episode just dropped this morning.
Fabulous. We're talking to Shirley Young, great podcast. So ordinarily when everybody is into something, because I'm such a contrarian, I'm not. Having said that, I'm so into this eclipse thing. I'm almost counting the moments.
Really?
I really,
what are you doing? What are you doing at 3:30?
Marjorie, not at 3:30. At 2 o'clock, Marjorie and I are going to an undisclosed location. We've already made arrangements. One of our, I can say it now. I was going to say it later.
I'm already there.
We are. Jamie has already said, we shouldn't have said this, but we've said it already, so it's too late. He's going to pretend he's sick on Monday, call in sick, and he's going to New Hampshire, Vermont, right?
Well, you got to go to Vermont.
Where?
Canada. You're going to Canada?
Whatever it is. Okay.
Where in Canada? Oh, you can't
He's
say?
not telling us. I know. People are going to...
Wow. So you're not into it. Are you really into it?
I'm totally.
I'm not into it. I can't even get into it. I don't know why. We had 3 stories to prep. It's like, okay, finally I'll read what's going on.
The stories about how people are making a ton of money. The businesses,
that's good. I guess
the motels,
I should be happy about
There's
that.
a beer that's dedicated to it.
Yes.
They lost so much money in New England. People like hoteliers and ski resorts, because of the climate change, they're going to make some money back.
It is good because hotels.
So now you're embarrassed?
Oh, no, I was going to say it is economically it is good. I mean.
So why you not? Your kids must be wildly into this.
No, not yet. Maybe we'll get. Actually, the only note we got from the school was because the eclipse is happening during school dismissal, and so the teacher the principal did send a note out. It's like, this is going to happen. Just to let you know, your kids are going to be let out just as there's a total eclipse of the sun. So.
Do you know they close the schools all day in Burlington, Vermont, which is on the path of totality?
Right. It makes sense because there'll be tens, maybe hundreds of thousands more people there. It's a big deal up there. I don't know what's going to be like here. All I'm thinking about is like, what will this do to dismissal Vermont.
For your kids and pick
But I
up.
do know a lot of people who are going up to Vermont. It is a big deal for a lot of people, and I love one of our stories. The lead was one of the innkeepers in Vermont got a call 2 years ago from a guy in Austria. It's like, I'd like to book a room, and talked about the eclipse. He's like, what are you talking about?
Why are you even bothering, right?
Exactly. But it's good for the hotel. I mean, I think some of the hotels are $95 a night, and now they're $950 a night.
Motel 6s in Illinois, we heard this on CNN last night, 10 times their normal rate, $95.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't care about it, let's not talk about it. So let's, no, actually, we're going to,
it is a big deal.
No, our final segment today is we're going to entertain calls from listeners and texts about whether they are looking forward to the eclipse like we are, and Shirley is not. Shirley, can I raise something that is going to really put me in my grave? Michelle Wu is attempting to raise the amount of money raised from, I've used the word twice in one sentence, from commercial property owners in an attempt, because obviously we're losing money from commercial property owners because there's so much vacancy and that sort of thing, trying to raise more money, raise the rate. And it's not just to gratuitously raise the rate, it's so that residential ratepayers don't have to pay more to keep the budget afloat. That is not upsetting to me. I think that's a compassionate move, as long as it's a reasonable amount. When I'm reading in the damn Globe story that for the city of Boston to decide to do an equitable thing and raise the commercial property rate, they need to get approval from the legislature on Beacon Hill, I literally thought I was going to have a stroke. Is other than history?
I actually didn't know that.
Well, it's in the story in the Globe.
Until I started reading it.
Is there any rationale for again, the rep in Fitchburg?
Right.
Well, it could be unanimous at the city council, supported by the mayor, all elected by the people of Boston, and reps that have nothing to do with Boston could kill her attempt to protect residential taxpayers. It's outrageous.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there. I know people in the commercial real estate industry are buzzing about it. I mean, what I want to know about and it's a tough time right now. Companies aren't building. It's very expensive right now because of interest rates. The office market is no one knows what's going to happen. So people are really nervous about building, and now they have this potentially higher rate they have to pay. But I'm very curious now. She's not the first mayor to propose doing this, so I'm very curious to see what happened in, I think, 2003 when Mayor Menino did this, and what were the conditions. And I think he did get it done.
But the fact that he was, I don't remember that. The fact that he was, by the way, Judge Gertner just texted in to say she is going to Vermont for the eclipse. Well, thank you, Judge, for letting us know where you'll be on Monday. We appreciate that.
She's excited about it. As everyone is, except for Shirley.
Well, unlike Jamie, we have to work. We actually are working. Jamie is pretending he's sick so he can go to Canada, he says.
Yeah, Jim's hired a helicopter.
Well, okay, can I say one more thing? So, wait, it's just 3 minutes, right? It's not like a whole day.
No, but it gradually, it gets darker and darker and darker, and then there's 4.5 minutes. It's not 3 minutes.
But usually I don't like it when it's dark. I don't like it when it's dark.
Oh, my God. This is like once every 5 million years kind of thing. No. Okay, can we stay on this for a second?
Sorry.
I wrote, if I say myself, a brilliant piece.
Afraid of the dark. You see the quote from our staff.
By the way, speaking of, can I just say one thing? We had these fabulous glasses from Nova /GBH. We ran out of them, but I have one for you. Don't worry about it. But what's my point? Oh,
Shirley, get one for the kids.
Sandra is trying to get more, right? Did she go back to GBH? So don't leave if you're disappointed. Oh, we have them. We have them already.
Oh, really?
Oh, a small pile.
Oh, really?
So you should go back there.
Or
well,
maybe
they're
I'll
running.
Get glasses.
Oh, everybody's going to leave after
glasses.
this.
But what about your kids?
Can you save one?
That was part of the note from the principal.
Can you save one for Shirley back there? Thank you, Shirley.
That was one of the note from the principals. Make sure your kids don't look at the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
What was my point here? I started to say I was complimenting myself. Well, let me continue. I wrote a brilliant piece for the Globe about rent control about a year ago. And it wasn't really about rent control. It was about the fact that if the people who are elected in Boston want to do rent control, whether you love it or hate it, you elected them, they should do rent control. And they can't because the legislature has to decide, and they're not going to let them do it. There should be a crusade by your damn newspaper about this absurd outdated notion that the most important city in Massachusetts has to go on bended knee to Beacon Hill to get liquor licenses, a tax increase approved. It's outrageous.
It is outrageous. I actually want to know the history of that. I know the history of why.
They didn't like the Irish.
That is totally what it was.
Well, I know, Ray. I know.
The Brahmins didn't like the Irish.
Right. I know why the city has to go to the state to ask for more liquor licenses, but I don't know the reason why about rent control or taxes. It seems like the mayor should have her own tax.
Well, I don't know what I would argue. I would argue that if it turns out a decision made in your capital city has a profound effect on people beyond your borders, then I could argue that maybe the legislature should have some involvement. Right. But if the decision you're making, like to raise property tax, commercial tax rates, is only happening within your borders, why is it anybody's damn business except the elected? And again, by the way, they're entitled to be wrong, in quotes. You elected them, let them make and the liquor license thing, which as we know is so discriminatory against entrepreneurs of color who own restaurants and that sort of thing. That's another area where it is totally outrageous. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, Jim.
No, I mean, do you not agree with this? You're being silent there.
Well, I think
probably baking a cake. What?
I think probably the legislators in Western Mass, maybe they don't want to give up the control or the power.
I know, but
that's what the legislators said. Well, that's because I've been working on a project about liquor licenses, and I asked them, like, why don't you lift the cap?
And what do they say?
They said they don't want to give up power.
Yeah.
How pathetic is that?
They don't want to give up power.
Are we going to read that in the paper, I hope?
Yes, I've already written the sentence.
Oh, you did? I mean, talk about nerve. It's incredible.
Well, that's because they feel that they're ignored by all of us down here in Boston, and they get a point there. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on Bromfield Street, corner of Washington and Bromfield, this big high-rise that's sitting there and upsetting all the neighbors.
Yes, so I walk by this building all the time in downtown Crossing. It's on Bromfield in Washington. It's the street on the street's empty, right? The retail storefronts, and I've always I didn't realize this is the building that my colleague John Chesto has been writing about for years. During the pandemic, I think in 2020, this developer proposed office, and everybody thought he was crazy. Why do you want to build more offices? People are working from home now, and here we are 4 years later, and he still wants to build offices there because he thinks that companies will flock to the newest buildings, with the best amenities, and so new construction, or new renovations. That's what people want. That's what companies will want. And now the city has to decide: will it let this developer build more offices at a time when the vacancy rate office vacancy rate is like the highest in 2 or 3 decades, or really nudge him to build housing instead. And when I finished reading John's stories, he should obviously build more housing. I mean, the
well, they can't force him. They can nudge him.
They can't force him. Maybe you throw him some more incentives. I don't know, but they really should convince him to build more housing, to convert this building into housing. And what's interesting is that he actually wanted to build housing. 2 other times, he couldn't get the neighbors to sign off on making that building residential. And so,
who are the neighbors?
I don't know.
What neighbors are there? Bromfield and I'm serious.
I think they were concerned about parking. No, there are
couple of big high-rise apartment buildings there.
Live down there, but you're right. It's
really
not
nice
like,
apartment
buildings. Other parts of the city where there's a lot of residential. It is.
Why don't we let the state rep from Fitchburg decide if we should build the building downtown? I mean, really.
Yeah, they're ticked off. They're ticked off at us, Jim.
But I walk by that building,
Fitchburg.
and it's perfect because it looks like one of these old buildings that you actually can convert into housing. So I hope this developer changes his mind.
That's another depressing street. I don't know if you guys remember when we actually had cameras. Do you remember what cameras were when they weren't in your phone? There was I don't know if it was, I think it was called Bromfield Camera. I remember going there and you actually bought like a camera.
Yeah. Well, there's a pen shop. I think the building.
And the pen shop.
That's the building. There? No, I think that's the building. The Bromfield pen shop.
I used to go to the pen shop too.
This is the building.
Remember pens?
Yes, I remember
pens.
Yeah.
And remember cameras? And you remember them, Marjorie, or not?
Cameras, I do remember cameras.
Pens, you remember pens?
I have more pens than most people, Jim.
That's
I'm
great.
Look right here, looking
What
at
about pencils? You use
102.
pencils
Can I tell you something? I have so
pencils
many
too.
GBH pens that I literally can't fit them in my car.
You know why you have to have pencils as a reporter? Because sometimes when it's really cold,
That's right.
ink won't write. You
That's
have
incredible.
a pencil there
Yep.
to step into the breach.
I remember that.
Okay, this is the best story of the day.
I would
because
agree. To me, it is too.
I don't like the former
Oh, I didn't
president.
know that. I'm surprised. I didn't
So
know that.
anyway, things are not going so well for Truth Social, Shirley?
On the stock exchange.
On the stock exchange, that's correct.
His social media company, yes. So last week we were talking about his, made its debut, and he was making worth billions more. But that was last week, and so the stock has fallen. It was trading at a high of $80. Now it's falling below 50
In a week.
In a week, we just checked right now. It's actually down another 4%
Oh, that's
today.
sad.
It's at $42.
Oh.
And now, this is an interesting factoid. So now Trump Media, this is his company, is what they're called the most shorted special purpose acquisition vehicle in the country. They call these, so in order for it to go public, it had to become what they call a SPAC. And now it's the most shorted SPAC, which means that, and short selling means that you're betting that the price of the stock
go
will
down.
fall.
Yeah.
And so you're betting that it will be a big loser. And so what's happening is that people are borrowing shares of the company, they're selling them into the market, they're hoping to buy them back later at a lower price. Anyways, so that's what's happening.
By the way, in a related note, we didn't mention today, I have no idea what the outcome is going to be. Trump came up with $175 million the other day with that California car dealer or whatever it is. And the Attorney General of New York, who of course we know is a racist because we were told that by Donald Trump, is actually in court saying he is not licensed to provide bonds for defendants in New York State. So I don't know what the outcome is. I don't know if anything's happened today,
I didn't know
but
that.
it's possible that the $175 million guarantee may disappear before next week is over. We're going to do every day only because it'll make Marjorie and me happy. We're going to tell you what, if the Trump stock goes down, we'll tell you what the value is. If it goes up, we won't. How's that? Is that a fair?
Okay.
Very good.
Is that a fair?
Sounds good.
Okay. Shirley, it's nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Shirley Leung.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Maybe you'll get more enthusiastic by Monday about the eclipse.
I can't believe
You
your
think so?
kids are not wild about it. By the way, we have one, you have to share it with your family. We have one, whatever they're called, solar eclipse glasses in the back of the room for you. So don't say we never did anything for you, okay?
Okay. Shirley Leung, thank you very much. Shirley, of course, is a Boston Globe business columnist and the host of the terrific podcast, Say More, and you can hear her interview about the 20 Days in Mariupol, the Academy Award-winning GBH film, on her podcast right now. After a quick break, I'm going to
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, broadcasting live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Hurwick III are here for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. We may be done with March, but not the madness. The Macarena gets caught up in some NCAA courtside disrespect, and goodbye quiet quitting, hello Lizzo. It turns out the singer isn't done with the music industry, just bad vibes. Plus, Boston restaurants garnered James Beard nominations. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Unicare. Unicare is becoming WellPoint. Same doctors, same hospitals, new name, same commitment to you. WellPoint. Claims are administered by WellPoint Life and Health Insurance Company. Unicare.wellpoint.com. And Comcast Business. Committed to keeping businesses up and running with Comcast Business Internet. With internet speeds up to 10 gigs available. Comcast Business. Powering possibilities.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu on Tuesday, Phil Lang, head of the T, on Friday. Both to take your questions, both from 11 to 12. So it's the biggest story everywhere, last 2 weeks at least, is allegedly finally happening on Monday. It's not allegedly, it is happening on Monday. The clouds were an issue, but it's going to be sunny here. The path of totality will sweep across the U.S. for this solar eclipse. The last time we'll get one in North America until August 23rd. 2044. We want to know what your take on, if you're into it, not into it. Are you driving or flying? Remember, Kelly Beatty is flying 200 people to Austin, Texas for this. The number is 877-301-8970. Where are you planning on being? And we repeat, we don't want to get him in trouble, but we are truth tellers here. Jamie is pretending he's ill on Monday to drive to Canada, and he's willing to face the consequences, which I admire. Maybe you're frantically Googling where to find the nearest colony of Galapagos turtles, because we learned they mate like crazy, like bunny rabbits, during eclipses. Maybe you're hoping the insane right-wing conspiracy theories are right and Texas will be vaporized. They're saying that, by the way. Or maybe you're like me and Marjorie, resigned to watch a 97% or 95% partial eclipse from the beautiful streets of downtown Brighton, Massachusetts. 877-301-8970. Sharon just texted and said, I just turned off the radio because you're providing unscientific information around the eclipse. First of all, when people say they turn off the radio, they never turn off the radio. So Sharon, since you're still listening, we didn't provide unscientific. Shirley's not into it. She got something wrong. We corrected her. Shut up already. I mean, that's the end of the thing.
Okay, Jim.
We're going to give the correct information. Nice. 4.5 minute thing, 93 to 95%. And Sharon, if you
people are very excited. There's a run on all sorts of things. Cameras, you said before. This Melrose camera store has been stocked up like a couple of years ago for all the special eclipse watching camera gadgets. Are practically sold out. There's a big deal, porta potties, Jim, because people are going to be all over the place and they're going to need porta potties on the side of the road on the path of totality. Breweries are all excited. They have this path of totality beer by Lawson's Finest Liquid, and
the globe,
people are getting tattoos.
Really?
Which I suppose
are you
makes
getting
sense.
a tattoo?
I'm not getting a tattoo, but I think lots of people are getting tattoos. I'm really happy for the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont because they used to be kind of a down on your luck kind of place.
Yeah,
the
it's way
Northeast
up
Kingdom,
there too. Yeah.
Up there, but it's going to be a mob scene up there. They haven't seen anything like it since the Fish concert when there were 70,000 people stuck on the road.
Fish,
that is correct. That's right. People were stuck on the roads, and it's the first total eclipse in northern New England since 1932, Jim.
Okay, so I have one more thing. My favorite story, and there are thousands of them. I think that's why Shirley's not into it. It's so much coverage, but it's going to be over Monday, so get over it. This is the best story. Did you read the story about 6 prisoners filing a class action from the prison or jail, I'm not sure what level it is, in Sullivan County, New York, suing because they were not allowed to be in a place on the prison grounds where they could see the solar eclipse. And you know what the judge ruled?
Let them see the eclipse.
Let them see the eclipse.
I love that.
How great is that?
Yeah, that is pretty great. That is pretty great. So it's a big deal to lots of people. And, I'm kind of excited about it. I mean, I saw the NOVA. We're going to speak with the people from NOVA on Monday, but I already saw the NOVA documentary. And, the thing that they were talking about is that you never see the corona of the sun because the sun is so bright. But when the moon is blocking it, you can see these beautiful like flames of light coming off the sun, which you can't normally see. So there's a lot of really neat stuff. Warby Parker, I guess, is giving away corona glasses.
We were too. Did we get more?
Too.
What's the status here? No, we're done. Okay. Anonymous texter, I'm very excited. My best friend forever and I are doing a road trip from Worcester to a farm very close to the Canadian border, which is near where Jamie will be. The beauty of totality is you can see the planets and stars during the day, and it's not completely dark. That's actually pretty great. I hadn't thought of that. That's pretty great, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I'm not a big science person, but I think this is kind of cool.
Okay.
Dave in Boston, what do you think?
Hey, Dave.
Well, first of all, I have to say I went to ABBA in London last year, and it's pretty spectacular.
It is? You mean to see the ghosts, right?
Yeah, to see the ABBA thing.
Yeah.
The Avatar.
Avatar is what they call it. What's exciting? Can you explain? I know that's not our topic, but we talked about it with Christopher, who loves it. Muther. What's the excitement of seeing an avatar of an ABBA player sing an ABBA song? Mamma Mia.
Because you get to go to an ABBA concert because when they were popular, you were 4 years old.
Well, that's a good point.
You get to go to an ABBA concert because they're in their 70s and 80s.
Okay.
But at any rate, we're going to Vermont for this thing. We're going to Vermont. We're leaving Sunday night. The biggest thing is where are we going to watch it at? Middlebury seems to be the furthest south of a real, like a large for Vermont town that you could probably stop at, but that's our goal.
Where are you staying overnight?
We're going to get up it's south of Rutland at a B&B.
How much?
And we were lucky to get it.
How much?
I think it's a couple hundred bucks.
Oh, that's not horrible at all, actually.
No, because they were talking about a lot of price gouging going on.
Hey, Dave, this is a horrible connection, but quickly, why are you so into this?
Because I'm not going to be able to see it again in my lifetime.
That's an excellent answer. I love that answer. Have fun, and you had fun at ABBA, so I'm sure you'll have fun at this. Dave, thank you much for the call. 877-301-8970. I can't really tell. Are you excited, or you're just going along with me on this? Are you into it? Yeah.
I'm excited. I mean, it's not going to be as dramatic, obviously, for us here in Boston, but it will still be. You'll still get an idea of it. When you see it, when I watched it, as I said, I watched another documentary. I mean, it gets dark.
Yeah.
The animals are very confused. Some of them start getting ready to go to bed because they think it's nighttime.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. It's a phenomenon. You're not going to see very much, as Cole just said. Next one's not till 2044. However, Jim, as usual in these troubled times, we have these conspiracy theories everywhere that the apocalypse is. This is all about the apocalypse. Apocalypse. Excuse me. The end times are coming. Oh, here's one from some of these right-wing
Alex
wackos.
Jones is doing a lot of these.
Yeah, Alex Jones is, but this is not Alex Jones. This is somebody else. That the Biden administration is using it as an opportunity to shut down cell phone service or to bring in the National Guard to make beautiful blonde children play sports as transgender sports enthusiasts.
Oh,
I mean,
that
that's
makes
kind of
a lot of
crazy.
sense to me.
Alex Jones is all about the New World Order. That's one of the big themes on Alex Jones' New World Order.
Right, the billionaires. He says that counties in Oklahoma and Texas, I think it is, are declaring states of emergency so that billionaires can establish a new world order, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's right. The New World Order is very big on the conspiracy theory people. And then some people are worried about this, some far-right conspiracy theorist who's got like over 1 million followers. He's worried about these rituals going to be performed during the eclipse, Masonic, Satanic, Esoteric, Gnostic, Brotherhood of the Snake, and other cult-like
They're doing that
groups.
where Jamie's going, by the way. That's why he's going to that location. Let's go to Samantha in a car. I wasn't supposed to say that up here, apparently. Samantha in the car, you're next on Boston Public Radio. What's your deal?
Hi, we're actually headed up to New Hampshire right now.
Really, you are?
Yeah, so we're going to New Hampshire. We wanted to get there early so we didn't have to deal with the traffic.
And where are you staying?
We're staying a couple of nights at Mount Washington Hotel and then a couple of nights at an inn in Gorham. And then we're going to a concert. And then we're going to a concert. We actually had tickets for a flight to Chicago to drive to Indy if the weather was bad here.
Wow.
And I got all my passports and even my daughter, who was 16 months, passports if we ended up going to Canada.
I love you. This is great. So why are you and whoever you're going with as into it as you're into, as you are, Samantha?
So 7 years ago, we went to Chicago and we drove to St. Louis and we saw it there. And after that, I was so excited. I've been planning this for 7 years. I ordered 100 pairs of glasses. I gave them to all my coworkers.
This is great.
I sent them out to all my family. I gave them the times of the exact times of when it's going to start. From wherever they were living. So I am super pumped and super excited.
What was so neat about the one you saw before? Why did it so capture you?
So I totally felt like connected to people that, thousands of years ago that looked up and were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You know, because they didn't know what was going on. And it was just so amazing to sit there and see this 360-degree sunset and the sun, and just watching it, be that black dot with like the feathery, like wavy things all around it. It was just awe. Like, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is one of the best things I've ever seen. And after that, I had wanted to go, because there was ones in Chile and Argentina, but I didn't get to go those the last.
Samantha, how dark did it get? Was it nighttime or like dusk?
For me, from I remember, it was like dusk. It was,
Yeah.
But I was just so concentrated on just looking at the sun and being in totality.
Samantha, I am thrilled that you called. That is a fabulous call, and we hope you have a wonderful time. Email us or text us or call us afterwards and let us know if it lived up to expectations. Thank you very much. You know, Marjorie, apparently we've created a bit of a problem for Jamie.
We have?
I think Jamie thinks he's going to get in trouble. We have said that he's going to fake colon sick. But we have not told the employer, so that's not an issue. He said, for the record, if I am fake calling in sick, why would I tell you about it?
That's a
and
good
the answer
point.
is because you didn't think we'd repeat it. That's why you told us about it. He said, I've been planning on this eclipse since my 4th grade science teacher mentioned it to me in school, and I thought at the time, I'll be dead by 2024. So he's thrilled that he's still here, and he's gone wherever he's gone in Canada.
Now, Samantha said she felt connected to people who, down through the eons and the millennia, have seen these eclipses.
That's pretty good.
And Zoe says she feels connected to people who have no idea what's going on. So there you go. There's two sides to this whole thing. I just got a text from somebody who says, my girlfriend and I found a B&B, Airbnb, whose owner apparently didn't know about the eclipse. We got a room for $120.
Oh, my God.
Ha, ha, ha.
How is that possible? What are you going to say? They watch Fox News too? I mean, what's the explanation?
I don't know. Laura from West Roxbury says her kids' BPS school, the Linden, is giving every kid's eclipse glasses thanks to our wonderful PTA. I think the eclipse is very exciting, but she's nervous because, as Shirley said, it's right at the time of dismissal, so she wants to make sure the kids have all got their glasses on if they're going to look up at the sun, so nobody gets... it can really hurt your eyes, right?
Right, except we've shown the photograph 400 times of Donald Trump when he was president going out to a balcony and doing what he would do, which is staring directly at the thing, and it didn't hurt his. Believe me, I got to be careful. Don't do that just because he got away with it. It is everything I read. It can blind you. So again, and by the way, even though we ran out of glasses, we gave out thousands of them. So we have more. Oh, Edgar says we have a few more. No more. One of our coworkers says we have no more. One says we have a few more. So it's somewhere in between few and none. In any case, what is my point there? Oh,
I don't know.
They're really cheap. And so even if you can't get one free from us, and we're sorry, we did as many as we can, they're really cheap. Just go somewhere and go buy a few. I mean, they're cheap, so whatever.
You know, Kevin Collin has a column in the Globe
He
lives up in Vermont now, and he's talking about how schools have closed so people can
Burlington,
be out. So they can go out and see the eclipse themselves. Commercial vehicles are supposed to pick up stuff on alternative days to ease on the traffic because they're very concerned about traffic, and the state is opening a bunch of state parks early. Mobile satellite trucks, cell towers on wheels, so that people can get their cell phones to work up in places where it's usually very, very difficult.
Let's take some. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. Let's go to Tim in Worcester. Hi,
Tim. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I know you don't have much time, but I want to go on the record with Jim, believe it or not, as hating ABBA and Alex Jones. If it was the photo finish, I don't know who I'd have to.
Well, I don't hate ABBA as much as I hate Alex Jones. Let's be clear here, Tim. I just don't like ABBA.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Take it from there. Thank you.
So I've got my Donald Trump glasses, and I'm going to Ashland, New Hampshire on Sunday night, staying with my girlfriend in Ashland, and that's right next to Plymouth State University. So then we're going to travel another hour, hopefully, north, and get the total eclipse.
Well, you sound excited too, Tim. Thanks for the call. Good luck. Someone who signs his or her text saying an eclipse-loving doctor says, does Jamie need a doctor's note to be out of work on Monday? Text that guy back, and he'll pretend you're sick on Monday instead of you just doing it by yourself. That's the solution. No problem. Mark in Salem, hello.
Hey, I'm glad I'm not your colleague. I just want to say, what about? And you're just outing everybody.
No, I'm just telling the truth. I'm a truth teller, my friend.
Yeah, well, that's what we rely on you. We rely on you for that. Well, let me tell you the truth.
Thank you.
One of those prisoners that you're so cheerfully cheering for the judge. He stole my car, wrecked it with my animals in it.
No, that's not true.
Think, when it gets down to it, if you start learning people's backgrounds, you might not be so happy that they're getting to see the eclipse.
They're not getting out of jail. I'm not asking for them to get clemency. All I want them to do, if they want to see the damn eclipse, let them see it. You have a problem with that, Mark?
I've changed my mind. You persuaded me as always. Listen, the last caller said he's driving up to Plymouth and then going all the way up. That's what I wanted to do. But then I got picturing the traffic that's going to, the traffic and the people being in the woods along the side of the road and myself doing that. And I skip a lot of, I don't go to Patriots games. I'd love to, but I hate being in the parking lot afterwards.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm just so afraid of that situation. And I won't even make it to totality. I'll be, nearly there, and then it'll go by, and thousands of us will be trying to turn around. And
I know.
So I'll be in Salem.
Hey, Mark, you're a good one. Call us again. That's an excellent call, actually. That was a really good one.
One of the problems about the path to totality.
What is it?
I mean, we're only going to make it like 2/3 of the way there, or 3/4
No, you go early.
of the
You
way
don't
there,
drive up
or
Monday
9/10.
morning. You go early. You go ahead.
Those of us who are in Boston.
Oh.
We're not going to get total. We're just going to be.
We're not 2/3.
The
It's 93.
half-baked.
No, 93 to 95% in Boston.
Is it 93 to 95%?
What?
Okay, so I'm going to be like almost there for the rest of my life.
By the way, Paul in Worcester makes a wonderful point, and
Not
I feel
quite
bad.
there.
I feel bad that we didn't make this point because we were mocking Donald Trump for looking at the thing with no glasses on. If you make the same mistake, and we want to be really clear, do not make the same mistake. But if you do go blind after looking at the sun, you simply rinse your eyes out with bleach, and that will take care of it.
That's right.
So
Or
bleach,
ivermectin, one or the other.
solves a lot of problems.
Now, we have not mentioned
the
that
show's
for those,
almost over. You know that.
Well, that Burger King is giving out free Whoppers for the solar
No,
eclipse.
you
I
said
want
that
people to
this
know
morning
that.
on the morning show. You're misleading people. You got to buy one to get one. So it's a BOGO kind of deal. You don't get a free one unless you buy
I thought
one.
you got a free one.
No, that's a scam. It's not a
So you
scam.
have
I
to
shouldn't
go.
say
You have
that.
to go with your family then. So
You do.
You can get 6
Should
in
you
the
and I
car.
go to Burger King right before we go
I think
or
we
undisclosed
should.
location?
I'll order a Whopper and you'll get one free, Jim. And then we'll go look up at the sky, 93% there, and we won't be in the total path of totality.
Let
but
me
we'll be-
ask a quick
we'll be
question.
sort of along the route.
Monday, you will not be in the witness protection program
No,
again.
I'll be
Is that
back.
correct? You'll actually
I'll be back.
back?
Yep, I'm going to be
Excellent.
back.
Okay, we're done.
Because on Monday we are going to be talking about Nova and the eclipse. We're very
We are.
excited about that. We're also going to be joined by former Boston Globe editor Brian McGrory, who
good.
heads a journalism school at BU, who outed the guy that
Ralph Delatorre.
runs Stewart Healthcare for his 190-foot yacht and his 90-foot fishing boat. The world's Marco Werman is going to be with us live from a reporting mission in Israel.
Oh, great, great,
NYU
great.
medical ethicist Art Kaplan, the Reverends Iron Monroe and Emmett G. Price III, and, as I said, the folks from Nova, Chris Schmidt and Caitlin Sachs on their latest episode about the eclipse. We want to thank our long-suffering crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, additional support from Ethan Kotler, our engineer, John LeClaw Parker, and our particularly long-suffering producer, Jane Bologna, who takes a lot of grief from you-know-who. Special thanks to our Boston Public Library staff, Brad Lewis, Matthew Glover, Carly Corcoran, Isabella Karen, Sandra Lopez-Burke, who brought all the glasses, and as always, thanks to the hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lennox Hotel. Stay tuned.
Oh, go ahead. You
Jim.
go first.
I want you to say stay tuned for the Culture Show right after the 2 o'clock news here on 89.7 GBH. Yes, Jim?
This is really important because apparently I may be getting Jamie in trouble. I'm just looking at him. He looks really sick. I mean, really, really sick. I feel horrible. As one of the leaders of the show, and I know I speak for Marjorie, take Monday off. I don't know what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
But take care of yourself. Get better. I'm Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks for tuning
See
in.
ya.
Hope you have a great weekend and talk to you on Monday.
Thank you.
GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And JTA, Joe the Architect, an architecture, interiors, and branding firm committed to creating spaces people can live, work, and dine in. Joe the Architect. Let's make someplace great. Learn more at joethearchitect.com. If you don't see race, you're not seeing the full picture. Join a panel of experts as they lead insightful conversations on issues affecting people of color. Watch a new episode of Basic Black tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
Grab your binoculars and brush up on your birding. Join Alyssa Landre with Mass Audubon on April 27th in Natick for a special morning birdwalk. You'll explore fields, forests, and wetlands on the lookout for resident nesters like black-capped chickadees, migrants like palm warblers, and occasional visitors like the bald eagle. So lace up your walking shoes and bring along your camera and your curiosity. Learn more and sign up online at gbh.org/events.
Trusted, local, news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, live from the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. First up, a TikToker's hot take lands her in hot water for saying that SNL has never hired a, you guessed it, PAA. There's no denying that these women are hot. A hot ticket, that is, literally, with the price of women's Final Four tickets far outpricing the men's. And from the Final Four, it's the food finalists, with 2 local restaurants scoring James Beard nominations. Finally, it's Follow-Up Friday, where we give you the latest news on the developing stories we've been covering, from artificial intelligence to Elvis. That's next on The Culture Show, live from the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. An earthquake struck the New York City area this morning. The U.S. Geological Survey says it had a magnitude of 4.8 and was centered east-southeast of Clifton, New Jersey. Paul Earle is in charge of earthquake monitoring at the USGS. He says the quake was about 2.9 miles deep, which explains why people as far away as Philadelphia and Boston felt it.
This earthquake was felt by millions of people. We have currently over 100,000 reports describing the earthquake contributed to our website.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams says people should just go on about their normal day, but should make sure that people they care about are safe and not too shaken up.
And I encourage New Yorkers to check on their loved ones to make sure that they are fine, not only from the infrastructure damage, but this could be a traumatic moment for individuals going through an earthquake.
So far, there are no reports of injuries or major damage. Some of the major international charities operating in Gaza sent a letter to President Biden warning they'll be unable to continue working in the besieged enclave unless basic safety assurances are guaranteed. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports.
The charities, including ANERA, Project Hope, and Save the Children U.S., demand Biden call for an independent investigation into the attack on workers with World Central Kitchen. Both ANERA and World Central Kitchen have already announced a suspension of operations in Gaza. The groups also called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and for the U.S. to withhold offensive arms transfers to Israel. More than 200 aid workers have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war, now reaching the 6-month mark. The letter went on to read, with so many lives at stake, there can be no excuse for inaction or for allowing this disastrous status quo to continue. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Stock markets rallied after reports showed employers added more jobs last month than expected. NPR's Raphael Nam has more.
There's more good news for the U.S. economy. The labor market grew by more than 300,000 jobs in March, much stronger than what economists had expected. There was other good news, too. Wages continued to grow in March, but not so much as to spark fears about inflation. Investors liked the report, and all 3 major indexes rallied on the news. Keep in mind, stock markets had fallen this week over fears that the economy was getting too hot. But the latest data should provide the Federal Reserve room to cut interest rates this year. The timing of when that could happen, though, is still up in the air. Raphael Nam, NPR News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 398 points. The S&P is up 66. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. UMass Boston swearing in its new chancellor today. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza has more on the inauguration of Marcelo Suarez Orozco.
An Argentinian immigrant, Suarez Orozco is the first Latino to lead a school in the state's public university system. He got the chancellor job 4 years ago, but pushed his official inauguration off amid the pandemic and major construction projects on the college's Dorchester campus. Suarez Orozco previously led UCLA's Graduate School of Education. His inauguration comes amid unease in some quarters of UMass Boston. Last month, 3 professors in the school's Africana Studies department filed a discrimination complaint, claiming hostility on the part of university leadership. In Boston, I'm Kirk Carapezza, GBH News 89.7.
As we heard from our colleagues in Washington, a 4.8 magnitude earthquake this morning in central New Jersey sent shockwaves across New England. The U.S. Geological Survey says the magnitude 4.8 quake near White House Station, New Jersey, struck at about 10:25 this morning, and shortly after, shockwaves rolled across all of Massachusetts from the New York border to Boston. Many people reported their homes and apartments and businesses shaking for upwards of 15 to 20 seconds. And if you felt the earth move under your feet, you're asked to report it to the U.S. Geological Survey. This isn't the first quake in the area. Magnitude 1.8 struck Ledyard, Connecticut just last week. 45 degrees outside our studios in Brighton. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for individuals in a variety of career fields who want to help build a culture of inclusiveness. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Political leaders in Massachusetts are reckoning with budget shortfalls as tax revenues plummet. I'm Adam Riley. This week on Talking Politics, we'll discuss their responses, including the Healy administration's hiring freeze and Mayor Wu's proposed tax increase for commercial property. Plus, how should the media respond when Donald Trump shares violent messages about President Biden? Join me for Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
It's time for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Here's what it sounded like.
Am I the only person who's ever noticed that SNL has never hired a, hot woman? And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that every single woman who has been a cast member of SNL is ugly. It's just that none of them have ever been, hot.
Singer Lizzo shocking her fans with a cryptic online posting ending with the words, "I quit."
The women's basketball boom is real. Guess how many people watched that huge Iowa LSU game featuring Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese? It was the most watched college basketball game on ESPN ever. Men or women. 12.3 million viewers. That is bonkers, bananas, huge.
A Greater Boston can start in the kitchen. A Dorchester restaurant was just recognized as one of the best in the country.
Comfort Kitchen is a finalist for a prestigious James Beard Award.
A long list of performers, including some of the biggest names in music, have signed an open letter calling for an end to what they call predatory use of artificial intelligence in the industry. This follows repeated high-profile uses of AI in songs.
Set up in 1936, Life magazine believed that pictures could change the world.
Well, as you just heard, a TikTok influencer is in the hot seat for saying the women on Saturday Night Live are anything but. And Lizzo just doesn't know when to quit. She clarifies her pink slip up, saying she's not quitting music, she's quitting bad energy. From there, March may be over, but the madness is not. The women are holding court, dominating the NCAA with Final Four tickets far outpricing men's. Plus, musicians are rallying for stronger protections against artificial intelligence, and it's the Oscars of the food world. We look at the local restaurants that have received James Beard Award nominations. But first up, a TikTok video has gone viral viral for a hot take, saying that SNL has never hired a hot woman, and the backlash from SNL cast members has been comedy gold. So I am not going to get myself in trouble at all here. So let's just
Callie, what do you think?
I think we'll go directly to the source, and then we can say what we all think, because I think we all have a lot to say. But this is TikTok user Jaheles Castillos, her original video, which was posted on March 21st, and she insists that the women on SNL, Saturday Night Live, aren't ugly, but that they've never been, quote, hot, and offered this reasoning.
I think it goes back to my theory where, like, one, people don't like it when conventionally and, like, especially super beautiful women are funny, right? Like, people refuse to accept that as truth, and they assume that any kind of humor that they put out into the world is actually them being stupid, and they don't understand sarcasm or why what they're saying is funny. Or they want every joke to be super self-deprecating, like talking down to themselves so that you can laugh at their expense. I think I said this about Sydney Sweeney, but I also feel like for humor with women, like, you have to be, for you to be considered funny, you have to be more funny than you are hot. And if you're more hot than you are funny, then it boils down to you just not being funny at all.
So, just the background on this. This is somebody who actually has 100,000 followers. Yeah. So, a very significant following, and seemed somewhat surprised that the backlash to this came about, because she felt like she had been in a safe space and that her users understand basically her language and vocabulary and I guess philosophy and sensibility about how she talks about things. Outside of those 100,000 people, the rest of the world didn't necessarily see this way, including SNL cast members. And this is just baffling to trot this out and make this accusation.
I don't know where, and she got a lot of blowback personally, meaning it wasn't even just about how stupid your comment was, but then people talked about her looks, which she should have expected as well. I have to say, the funniest response, though, is it comes from Sarah Sherman. People may know her. She usually plays the real strange comic characters on SNL. And what I think is so hilarious about her response, which I'll read in just a second, is that her whole thing is about horror looks. She loves horror looks. She loves quirky stuff. I mean, the whole look thing is just not on her radar in the way that this woman is focusing. So she wrote, "Just found out I'm not hot. Please give me and my family space to grieve privately and uglily at this time."
Uglily. I love the use of uglily.
I think that is just the perfect response, and it just put this whole conversation in its place. I mean, why are we talking about this? First of all, the women on SNL, just so everybody's clear, are very attractive women. And who defines what hot is? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there is a kernel of something that I think is worth grappling with in what this woman is doing here, right? That idea of, humor, the way we present women, what is the difference between being attractive and being sexy or hot? These these are all terms that are not necessarily interchangeable. What is beauty? Do we accept a beautiful woman being funny? Do we put people in boxes? Yeah, we do all of that stuff. So I think there's like a kernel of something in this, specifically around women comedy and what we think is attractive. It's obviously it has not been done in a particularly thoughtful way, but this is the internet. This is 2024, and that's part of it too. I mean, increasingly, I feel like this is the kind of thing that when I was younger, I could imagine being in a room where some people had a conversation like this, in a room where you are in quote unquote a safer space, right, where you know the subtlety of language with somebody else, and you'll say, okay, but would you say that they are attractive or are they hot, right? A couple of friends talking about that is one thing, but when you put it the internet is the world, everybody, right, it's out into the world, and so.
And by the way, the targets of this are real people.
Well,
the
that's
women
the other
on
thing.
SNL,
Yes.
They're not just props for you to just respond to.
Well,
so that's the thing that gets me.
When I first heard about this, I thought, okay, so a TikTok thing, and it's, and we're talking about it, which means she gets even more. Not that we're going to bring her more followers, but the more people talk about it, the more it expands, and the more followers she gets, which I'm sure she enjoys. However, Edgar, you said there is a kernel of truth to that because there is also a history in this. This argument has been made before,
of course,
not for a long time, and And it's interesting that she would reintroduce this and debase women, basically the argument being that you can only be really hot or you can be funny. You can't possibly be both because the world couldn't possibly see you this way, while in the same breath saying that Jimmy Fallon is a hot man and Adam Sandberg is a hot man, so it's okay for men to be hot and to be comedians. But it's just such a ludicrous argument, and it's, I think, again, we paid attention to it because suddenly we realized that more than 7.5 million people had followed through, and I'm sure this, and hopefully this will be the case, it'll be a boon for Saturday Night Live tomorrow night, and that they will address this.
You know they're going to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to add that when she's talking about, quote, hot here, she's using obviously a European standard of beauty. So that needs to be said. And then the first thought, if you're going to follow her line of thinking, what, was Marilyn Monroe not funny? Because she had the European standard of beauty, and she was funny.
Or Jennifer Lawrence. Look at how she's broken out of the box.
There you go.
And, I mean, we can go down the list for any number of people. And they started posting these sultry pictures of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, SNL alum, of course, before Seinfeld.
But the thing is, she argues against herself. So she says, like, I have this theory that we society don't allow women to be both funny and hot. Now I'm sort of interpreting what she said, but she essentially says that, and then continues to knock that buy into the argument, which is, I don't know, but also, I mean, I sort of take her a little bit at face value that she didn't expect this kind of blowback. I mean, because this is what happens. She's by herself with a phone, kind of doing a little bit to TikTok.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, it's everywhere.
All right. Well, I'm surprised that she didn't think that if there was going to be blowback, it would come to her personally.
Well, that's
of course we're going to evaluate your looks because who are you?
That's nice.
Turn up the music.
Oh, hey.
Turn down the lights.
That wasn't an accident. That was Lizzo. As we continue some of our baffling decisions that were made this week, we're playing Lizzo because, as the world heard, Lizzo decided to quit. I guess we all assumed she was quitting her career. Then she came back around and said, no, she's just going to quit. Here she comes back again. She's really not quitting.
She will not quit.
But said she's basically only quitting the bad energy and the bad behavior. I'm going to be the cynical one here, and I think that this is a public relations stunt because she had a lot of people who came forward and supported her, everybody from Bette Midler to Queen Latifah, no Lizzo, you can't go. Well, just remember, a few months ago, she was facing, and still does face, very serious allegations about creating a hostile work environment. Those included charges of a sexual nature as well. Some of those charges have been dismissed by a judge. However, some of them are still very much in process. So for her to be drawing attention to herself and trying to draw, I think, sympathy to herself by saying she doesn't want to be part of the bad energy is deflecting the accusations against her at this time.
Well, I think I have to agree with you, and I love Lizzo.
Me too.
I also think that what the whole setup was really exactly what some of the people who are charging her with bad behavior are talking about, because it's kind of weird in a way. Like, she's upset with people coming at her about her looks, about other things that we just talked about, and that's what the women who have made the charges, again, that's not been litigated, are saying that she did about them, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing here, though, is, as you were just saying, Callie, a few minutes ago, the people involved in this stuff are real people, right? Lizzo is a human being.
Yeah.
So whether this was a public relations stuff or not, you can also imagine a world in, and it's a little bit like I was saying before, she was having a bad day. Seek and ye shall find. On the internet, if you go in there in a bad mood, like if you're somebody as big as huge, as popular, as like out there in the world as Lizzo is, it's not hard to go on the internet and find people saying really awful stuff about you. And if you're in the wrong mind space and you have a day like that and you just go, I quit. And again, you tweet that out or you put an Instagram post and all of a sudden, it's everywhere. Like the wall between our public and private lives has just cascaded down. And so I think it's got to be difficult for people who are like huge celebrities like her. That said, it also might be a public relations stunt, and it's a complicated situation because, as you said, Jared, she's had these accusations leveled against her.
And also, she's all over the internet, usually.
And she doesn't have and the accusers don't have the platform that Lizzo has.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Oh, yeah.
All right, we're playing the Macarena because this has surfaced among a vast array of fascinating stories at the as we approach the NCAA, because people have revived this song. This has been happening during the games. But so not only is this happening, but what we've been talking about, alluding to since the start of the show, and what we talked about with Caitlin Clark last week, is that we see women rising to, like, men? What men? Women are all about basketball right now.
And I love it. Couldn't love it anymore. I mean, it's their time. It's been their time. Finally getting some acknowledgement for its television coverage and most importantly, audience enthusiasm. The Macarena, for those people who are wondering, why are they playing that? In case you haven't been following it closely, the South Carolina Gamecocks, the undefeated thus far, going into the Final Four.
We got a Gamecocks fan
people
here.
cheering.
Right,
Wow.
exactly.
South Carolina
Coached by the
folks.
fabulous Don Staley. And when they win, they do the Macarena, which is an old song, 1996.
I was going to say not that old, but I guess you're right.
You know, I mean, so I don't know why. No one has explained it, but that's what they do.
It doesn't matter. It's like, it's part of it. Like, this is, this is an amazing, this will be a watershed year for women's basketball for sure. I mean, women's sports, I think, more broadly. But I really do think we are at a turning point, and this is the year where it's all starting to come together. You talked about, the ratings in terms of the game that happened on Monday was the single most watched college basketball game in ESPN history.
Iowa versus LSU.
Iowa versus LSU on Monday. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a more important rating stat, which is that it wasn't just that one game, because that game was a big deal. It was a rematch from last year's final. You had some very prominent figures, so you could sort of push that aside. But average tournament game, NCAA women's, is up 127% this year over last year. And last year they were setting records in the ratings. So it's not just
about the money.
Well,
I was going to say, I think this is the hugely significant part, because this is where you can't dial it back.
Right.
Because I've been watching this unfold, and I think, is this just going to be a blip? We've talked about this with movies, everything else. We move forward with women, and then it rolls back. But when the money comes into play, if with sponsorship and deals and
betting.
And betting
is another one.
It's harder to pull that away. You can't pull that away after that's on the table. They'll try, but they can't. So I think this is what helps escalate all of this and keep it on an elevated platform.
As we said, right now it is on the secondary market. It is more expensive to buy tickets to the women's Final Four than it is to the men's. Now, people can look at that and say, well, the men's stuff is happening at a bigger arena as opposed to that. But then if you look at the ratings thing, there's clearly more interest. And I will say anecdotally, like, I'm a big sports fan. A lot of my friends are sports fans. And there have been any number of people who have made the same comment to me in the last couple of weeks, which is, as the tournaments have been going on, saying, I can't name a single player in the men's tournament, but I know a bunch of names in the women's tournament. They know the coaches, like Don Staley. There was this huge article about the LSU women's coach, Kim Mulkey, right?
Yes.
And she's sort of a little bit of a villain figure, but the fact that these characters are emerging and people know who they are,
She's
right?
a fabulously dressed villain.
Yes,
She's
she is.
incredibly dressed.
Yes, she is. Boas
Who
and
is
all.
for 4 years? I mean, she won as a player. She's won as a coach. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. I mean, these are superstars are emerging before our eyes, and people are here for it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I know.
And let me just, I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't normally comment on women's clothing, but she has carved out her niche on the sidelines to very much be a character who is talked about in the same vein
Kim
as
Mulkey.
Yes, Kim Mulkey.
Coach of the LSU Tigers.
Everybody should be Googling now if they haven't.
Yes.
Maybe I was a late describer, but it's fabulous to watch. Well, up next we look at the local restaurants getting a taste of the Oscars of the food world.
Yum.
This is the Culture Show live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Behind made every headline.
Nearly $125,000. That's an annual salary you need to live alone comfortably in Boston.
Is a human story.
The landlord told me that they were going to increase the rent like about 35%. I've been there for more than 20 years.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to keep people in the housing they're in. And that's affecting not only the individuals who are being displaced, but the community too.
GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Upstart Logic, founded in Silicon Valley in 1998. Committed to helping CEOs and their teams diagnose and solve intricate problems, cultivate leadership, and develop company culture. Learn more at upstartlogic.com. And H&H, the Handel and Haydn Society. The H&H Orchestra and Chorus imbue new life into Bach's choral masterpiece, his B minor Mass, April 5th and 7th at Symphony Hall. Tickets at handelandhaydn.org.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, we had some trembles in Massachusetts today, with residents across the state feeling the effects of this morning's earthquake in New Jersey. The group that organizes the Boston Marathon says it's taking steps to prevent a repeat of last year's incident, where police stood between runners of color and fans cheering them on. Plus, we'll hear from a local astrophysicist on what we can expect with Monday's eclipse. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Welcome back to The Culture Show, broadcasting live from the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, where you can join our studio audience every Friday, no reservations required. I'm Jared Bowen with co-hosts Callie, Crossley, and Edgar B. Horwick III. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Next on the menu, the James Beard Award finalists with 2 local restaurants to highlight: Comfort Kitchen and Tallulah. These are great stories. I would say especially for Comfort Kitchen, the way it has risen up and is getting national and even international attention for its international flair. Callie, I know you've spent time with the owners of this restaurant. Tell us about it.
Well, it is owned and by 4 immigrants, and they are very clear that the food that they're doing is, fine dining, but through an immigrant lens. And the 4 of them are from different places, so it's not just one experience. And what they put together is the kind of menu that you see now in different cities, which overlaps different kinds of cuisine. We don't use the word fusion anymore because it feels a little appropriation-y, if I can make a word. So that's not what it is. It's sort of a sampling and an underpinning and seasoning. All of that comes into play. And so it's a small place. This is amazing. They've been noted before in other awards. They've won other awards as well. But this is amazing for them.
And before we get to your take, Edgar, here is Cressy Kwa, chef and partner of Comfort Kitchen in Dorchester. He was on an episode of Basic Black with you, Callie, when you hosted last year, and he's talking about why he, as someone who was born in Ghana, thinks the cuisine of Comfort Kitchen is gaining popularity.
When I started cooking 14 years ago, the focus was Italian and French food. I cooked more French food before I cooked food from my own country. And that's a sad story that I always revisit, where I always thought, all right, what else can we do here, right? And I think in past years, and with the help of, television, food shows and things like that, people have broadened their horizon in terms of what they can try. Folks have become more adventurous eaters, if you would.
And this, again, is a restaurant, Comfort Kitchen in Upham's Corner in Dorchester. Cafe by day, 5-star restaurant by night. You've been there too, Edgar.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is this is such a huge deal, right? Being nominated for this award, you've seen it happen in restaurants all over the country. When this happens, reservations go up, attention goes up, and I love the fact that this is a restaurant here in Boston. We think about tourism in Boston, which is a big deal, and people come to cities they go to restaurants like this in cities all the time. I love that this is in Dorchester. A lot of our tourism dollars are sort of spent right here in downtown, which is great, and a lot of people think about this area where our studio is here, or they walk, around in Beacon Hill or Boston Common. But the fact that there is a restaurant like this, of this level, that is going to have this kind of attention in a neighborhood, in one of our neighborhoods, I think that is really good for the city of Boston.
I agree. One other great layer, it's called Comfort Kitchen because it was a comfort station, meaning it was a bathroom for the old streetcar passengers in the days of yore. All right, now it's time for Follow Up Friday, where we check in on some of the developing stories that we've been covering on The Culture Show. And
as you can see, we've been covering up.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere.
So this is, I mean, my blood is boiling. At the same time, I like it a little bit. Because that would be Johnny Cash singing Barbie Girl. Of course, that never happened. This is artificial intelligence. So we decided to revive that because there was a huge letter signed this week by more than 200 artists who are calling on the technology companies around AI to start being more responsible because we're not seeing the guardrails that we need to protect artists' artistic likenesses and voices and basically their whole artistic beings.
That's right. And just to give a sense of who's in the group, Billie Eilish, Nicki Minaj, Stevie Wonder, and the estates of Frank Sinatra and Bob Marley, and many, many other artists in between.
Yeah, it's a huge wide net. I mean, I think, one of the things... I think one of the things that's important here is that they are making a pretty broad ask, which I think is important. And I think one of the things we all need to start to do, and I think this comes down to all of us as consumers who are concerned about this, is to get a little bit more specific with our understanding of AI, what it does, what it can do well, which parts of it are dangerous, right? So they're not just asking, hey, you shouldn't be able to take my voice like Johnny Cash's voice and put it on a song. That is one piece, that is important. You shouldn't be able to do that. But I think the other thing, and this is the part that I find most troubling, is that these technologies they are being trained on all of these people's songs and their voices, and those people have not given consent for that, and they are not given money for that. And to me, that's the real troubling part, because the thing is like, and they say this in their letter as well, AI is going to be used in the making of music. It is an amazing tool when used fairly, when used properly. And I think from an artistic standpoint, I want to see what AI can do, but I don't want to see AI being trained on people's work without their consent. So that to me is the real issue here.
And the tricky part is they are not calling for an outright ban, which they could, because they're asking for responsibility, which is a little tricky in their business, in terms of its use, which means exactly what Edgar was saying, that, being thoughtful about how the technology is used. And we can point to, we had a big discussion here about the Beatles and their use of AI to put together what they already owned, a piece of from one of their members in a new record that wouldn't have existed because he was dead. Remind me who died in
John Lennon.
John Lennon, right. And so, there it was, and it's a gorgeous piece and all of that, but they own that material. You start getting out here where these people obviously do not own Johnny Cash's material. And so there's got to be, I think it's got to be more than guardrails. I don't know what you call it, but it's got to be stronger.
Yeah, this is the problem with it, because right now we are not like Europe, which in Australia, places that seem to be tracking this and trying to keep up with it the best they can in terms of the development of AI technology and the law. But here in the United States, we don't see that advancing. So it's left up to the artists to appeal to these companies, and the companies are only going to hear so much because obviously they're trying to develop product, and their product only gets better if they can, as you say, scavenge and train their AI by scavenging and being predatory, as the letter describes, and consuming all of the material from artists who are already out there.
This is a playbook that tech companies have been using for some time now. It's not just in the music industry. They know that if they can move faster than the law, that they can get into a space before the law can catch up, and they say, well, no, look how great it is. Everybody likes using it. Nah, you got to keep it now.
And the one exception we have to that in our follow-up Friday is the Elvis law that we talked about. Elvis as in ensuring likeness, voice, and image security. The Elvis Act in Tennessee, that has been signed into law, which will be, of course, Tennessee is going to be far ahead on this because of Nashville, and they have a lot of jobs and a lot of industry to protect.
And it's the only one in the country.
First and still only one in the country, but it adds voice to the copyright realm that would be protected by this. All right, well now moving along in our music segment here, we have talked a lot about artists rallying up, the latest what am I trying to say here? I'm getting a little confused with our script.
Spotify
We're moving on to
streaming.
Spotify and streaming, and artists like Mellow Green. And let's take a little bit of listen to Mellow Green right now.
I was afraid you'd throw my sympathy.
That is Mellow Green's song, Just Wandering. He is a local artist, and for that one play on Spotify that we just played right now, he would have earned exactly 0. So we are having a conversation about Spotify changing its royalty structure. We will point out that because we try to be responsible and thoughtful, our producers here on the Culture Show used Bandcamp to play that little bit of Mellow's song, and for that, especially because it's Bandcamp Friday, if you purchase a song or stream a song there, the artist gets $2. But otherwise, the artist would get 0.003 cents. In other words, $0. And this is a very strange time because not unlike the streaming services like Hulu and Netflix, which claim that they are just in the red because they've spent all of this time building this infrastructure that they can't really pay what they need to pay. This is their excuse for not paying artists, and yet they're going to be raising our fees and still not paying artists what they should deserve.
And let me point out, Spotify, is it the only one that can track every single one of us all year about every single thing that we listen to during the year?
And then package it and tell us that just taking our information is in the nice little wrapped package we get at the end
Which
of the year.
seems delightful, but if you stop and think about it, it's a little bit scary.
Well, yeah, it is scary, but my point is they know exactly, how many downloads have happened, whatever. Of course. So you could figure that out with the artists as well. The one thing that I am confused about, they gave an example that some people play, I guess I've done this too, where you have those scenes of a fireplace crackling or the ocean rolling, whatever, those waves lapping, that you just turn it on and let it go for hours. Now, originally, people could claim royalties for each of the hours, and now Spotify is saying, no, you can only do it for 1 hour.
No, it's tracked. So I mean, this is really interesting. So Spotify has sort of positioned themselves, and they say we're trying to clean some stuff up around here so that we can pay more artists a little bit more money. But really, most of the cleanup, if you go into the details on this, are about them sort of cracking down on what they think of as problematic people in their space. So what would happen is you would be getting credit every time a new track, say, would air. Right? So if I listen to a whole album and there's 12 tracks on that album, then you get points for 12 tracks or whatever, potentially money.
Right.
What these white noise or nature sort of things where people would listen to them to 3-4 hours, what people were doing was putting say 600 different tracks in that hour. So 30 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 15 seconds there. So they're banking all of this, all of these streams.
Got you.
And Spotify's saying, no. It's got to, for it to be a track now, it's got to be 2 minutes long. Their claim is basically some of these bad actors are taking the money that should be going to artists, but it's really kind of disingenuous.
Gotcha. Okay.
And also, you can have an extraordinary number of streams and still be making the equivalent of
nothing.
$15 an hour. So this definitely needs to be restructured, especially given that Spotify and other streaming services have really given a huge jolt to the music industry. So there is a terrible imbalance here, and this needs to be figured out, because otherwise you have artists, as I mentioned, our local Mellow Green, who are not getting paid respectfully, because generally we think of Spotify and artists and we're thinking of the Lizzos of the world or the Beyoncés of the world. This is not what we're talking about here.
And I would also say that consumers of Spotify think they are paying so that these people get their royalties, right? I mean,
I mean, it's really tricky because we now have a generation of people who have essentially come up where content is free to them, right? We have set the expectation that you can get any piece of music you want at any time and not have to pay for it. You can read any news article you want to read and not have to pay for it. And as we know in our industry, and the music industry is in the same place, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and nobody has figured out a way to make the economy of this work when all of the content is free. So something's going to have to give at some point. I don't know how or when, but these artists need to be paid for their work.
Well, and a quick last coda to our follow-up Friday. And speaking of streaming, Beyonce, we talked about Cowboy Carter last week. I think there's probably no surprise what would happen, but we learned that she has just topped just about everything with her album.
Record-shattering, the most streams ever for one record in eternity, it seems like, in one day. Here's a statistic I heard from CBS that I thought was very interesting. 85% of new listeners, like people who never listened to her before. I don't know how they calculated that, but that's huge.
As they're spying us, so they know what we've accessed in our
I guess you're right.
As it turns out, Beyonce is pretty good, and people like her. I mean, who saw that coming?
All right. Well, up next, It's a Wonderful Life again, the plan to revive the photography-heavy Life magazine. But in our picture-plentiful world, why? That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
You can negotiate a sticker price on a car or haggle your way around a farmer's market. But what about college tuition?
Colleges are businesses, and colleges are going to try to get you to pay as much as they can get you to pay.
On our podcast, College Uncovered, we talk tips on getting a better deal and how to navigate the financial aid maze.
Is this free money? Is this a scholarship? Is this a loan?
Listen to College Uncovered wherever you get your podcasts.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Babson College. Students can gain the know-how to become a successful leader at the #1 graduate school in entrepreneurship, ranked by U.S. News and World Report. Virtual open house April 17th. babson.edu/grad open house. And The Lyric Stage, presenting The Drowsy Chaperone. This bubbly love letter to musical theater includes mix-ups, mayhem, and a wedding or two. Now through May 12th at Lyric Stage Boston. Tickets at lyricstage.com.
Syria fought back against the Islamic State, but cities were left in ruins. Now, some of the reconstruction work is being done by children. We meet young teens injured in Syria's dangerous construction jobs next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to The Culture Show, broadcasting live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. If you're just joining us, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, and we move to Morocco now for a landmark exhibition, the first there to highlight the work of Afro-Cuban artists. I personally think this is so exciting. This is just a sweet spot for the art that I love, and in part because there is so much discovery to be made. So we're talking about art that has come from, I was going to say Cuba, but by way of Africa and so many other places, kind of going back to the notion of comfort kitchen and the way that the art and sensibility has worked its way in migration. Much of it landed in Cuba, and then much of it stayed in Cuba until the last, I would say, as I've been following it, the last 15 years or so, when people have really began to open their minds more about the art coming out of Cuba, and especially Afro-Cuban art, and most notably in one figure, and that would be Wilfredo Lam, who traveled the world. He was the son of a Chinese mother and an African father with Spanish descent, and all of this kind of swirled in him as a young child, and he went to Spain to learn more. The revolution there forced him to Paris, where he learned even more. At one point, he encountered Picasso there, who said, "I love your work. It reminds me so much of someone." Oh, it reminds me of me.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody I like. Who is that?
Yes,
I
exactly.
really like their work. Oh, me.
And then the World War II forced him back to Cuba, and he then wrestled with subjugation and discrimination there, and all that came to the fore in his work. And now we have seen this somewhat covered in the United States, but there's this exhibition in Morocco.
Yeah, this is really just mind-blowing. So apparently Morocco's King Mohammed VI visited Havana in 2017 and formed a relationship with the Cuban-American gallery owner there, Alberto Magnan. And they just got talking about the overlaps, the cultural overlaps between Cuba, obviously Afro-Cuban, and Africa. And it resulted in, 7 years later, this exhibition in Morocco that everybody's excited about. It features 44 pieces by Wilfredo Lam, as you've said. And another point to make is that a year from now, I guess it's 2025, there'll be a big exhibition of his work at the MoMA in New York. So this is a year ahead of that, another opportunity for people to know his work. And the reason that Picasso liked his work is because a lot of his pieces had an influence of that Cubism, which I say Picasso stole from Africa to begin with. So it's a full circle.
There you go. Yeah, and I think what can get lost in this, and I think it's an important piece of this story, is that trip that the king from Morocco takes in 2017 is because 2017 is when they restored diplomatic relations with Cuba, something that we did briefly in 2014, and then Castro died in 2016. And so among the things that happened when Cuba opened back up in a certain way of thinking to places in the world which had not had access there, is people involved in the arts were able to go there and see the work of some of these artists and meet some of these people. Cuba has on the world stage remained in many ways fairly isolated and kept things close to the chest there. And the opening up of diplomatic relations includes things like the arts and cultural space, and this is the outgrowth of some of that. So I think that's a big piece of the pie here.
And having gone to Cuba once, I'd like to
been?
go back. Yeah, oh yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I spent as much time as I could in artist communities. And in fact, and I'm terribly sorry, I can't remember the name of the artist I was infatuated with at the time, but I arrived at the gallery and his work was on the wall, and I said to the gallery owner, wow, I really, love so-and-so. I'm just so embarrassed I can't remember his name right now. And she said, he lives around the corner. And he literally, she went and got him, and he came from around the corner. I thought I was going to die. It was
that's awesome.
So, just to be in the space and see how much, what that art looks like, how much influence it has from those African roots. Cuba is just a really rich arts and cultural space. So this is all coming one piece. The spectrum is great here, and I'd like to see more of it here.
Well, I just want to correct myself quickly to say, Wilfredo Lam, he had a Chinese father, Afro-Cuban mother, of Spanish descent, to get his lineage correct. But you can actually see some of it here. And I was especially proud as I was realizing this story in Africa, watching this waves and the waves back happen there. But Boston has been part of this story. Yes. The Cooper Gallery at the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research has presented Afro-Cuban artists. They had a fabulous show. And when I was saying that this is a moment of discovery, because not a lot has been learned, there's still so much to be learned about who these artists were. They weren't necessarily recognized in their time. They haven't been recognized in succeeding generations. So that scholarship is being done right now. And also the McMullen Museum of Art at Boston College was the first to present a major Wilfredo Lam show in recent time, a few years ago, well in advance of the MoMA in New York. That's the work of Elizabeth Thompson-Goizueta, who is amazing there, and who's curated a ceramics show called The Lost Generation, Women Ceramicists and the Cuban Avant-Garde right now, where you can see ceramics and paintings by Wilfredo Lam, which is
great.
Very, very exciting. Well, moving on, there's another story that caught our attention this week was a possible revival, a likely revival of Life magazine. This is a magazine, of course, that was huge from 1936 to 1972, a magazine which put pictures at the forefront to take us around the world, take us into personalities, take us into history. It was a magazine that went into a quarter of all homes at the time because it was one of the few ways that you could have a wide dissemination of photography. But we all wondered, as we saw this story, the why. Not to discredit it, but with the proliferation of photography now, it's an interesting time to revive a concept like Life magazine.
I think it's an interesting time because a lot of people think a photograph is just a photograph because I have an iPhone. Yeah. So if nothing else, perhaps this allows people to come back to realize that this is art and that the photographers that they hired for this were artists and producers, if people can follow, because they weren't just pictures for picture's sake. They were really delved into the cultures of wherever they were set around the world. So there was a double whammy there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a picture for picture's sake. If it's beautiful, I mean, I can enjoy that too. But there was an underlying purpose of what the work was coming out of Life. I mean, we should note that this is being brought back to life by Joshua Kushner and Carly Kloss, Carly Kloss, of course, is well known as a high fashion model of some note, and a former host of the design show on Project Runway on cable. And Joshua Kushner, to be clear, is not Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner is married to Ivanka Trump. Joshua Kushner is married to Carly Kloss. And one more thing about Carly Kloss, they have a lot of money, obviously. She spent a great amount of money and time subsidizing programs for women in tech and young women in tech. So this is part of her whole media focus about propping up good media. So I understand why they're doing it. To your larger point, will we find it interesting at this point?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's really interesting to understand what this is going to be. So they've said they want to revive it both as a physical magazine of some sort and some sort of online presence. So there's that piece of it. They're also clearly being forward-looking with this. So one of the things that I find interesting in this deal, apparently, so Dotdash Meredith, which is the current owner of the Life brand, they will continue to own the rights to the photography archive dating back. So this new endeavor is not, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, they're going to buy up all of these iconic photos from Life through the years, and that deal makes sense then. But they're not. They're buying the brand, and they're going to relaunch it in some form or fashion. Now, they do this through Bedford Media is the name of their company, and they describe themselves, and it strikes me the wrong way, but it's just a media holding company focused on artisanal storytelling, authenticity, and shared cultural resonance. I mean, that's a little bit of gobbledygook, but generally speaking, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I don't think anybody knows what's going to work in the media landscape right now. So good on them for putting some money behind this and trying it.
And they got it to spend. So spend it on something good.
And physical media, I don't know. We've seen things like analog photography capture a new, younger audience because there's something kind of interesting to them about the fact that, I can take a picture and hold it. It's not just as quick and easy as with my phone. And that is, resonating with younger audiences. That industry has kind of re-exploded, not to the size it once was. So I don't know, like relaunching a physical magazine, maybe there is.
They're also doing digital. They're doing both.
Well, I think we're in this time that we're all looking for the slow stuff, right? Slow looking, slow food, slow cooking. And Life magazine, you can argue, is the slow looking, the slow absorption, because, as you say, Callie, it was all about storytelling. And it showed people what the Normandy invasion was like. It showed people the moon landing. It showed people the civil rights struggle in ways they couldn't see it before, especially before the network news and television certainly dented Life magazine. That kind of brought it to an end, actually. So maybe there is a need now to have something that's curated, that you want to sit down with and spend time with, again, for the storytelling nature. And think of some of those early photographers in Life magazine, like Gordon Parks and Henri Cartier-Bresson. I mean, they had people who this was about, as you say, very intentional about the dissemination of information. That's why I start to think it'll work, but will it gain traction in this, all the cacophony of the landscape? I'm skeptical.
Well, here's one good thing about having that much money. Unless you are determined, and they don't appear to be folks that I must make a profit by next week. They can afford to have a niche audience. And if they have a niche audience, that's great.
It's also, going to be in the execution, right? Because a lot of business endeavors now, especially in media, are all about making things work at scale. You just have so much that you make enough money at the fringes, or you get a big enough audience. This is only going to work if it's curated really well. And I think if it is, there will be at least something of an audience for it.
Well, we'll talk about it when it happens. That lightning sound is not just remnants of the nor'easter yesterday, but this is...
Nor is it another earthquake.
That's right, yes. This is a signal to go to our lightning round. These are the headlines that caught our attention this week. Let's start with you, Callie.
Well, more Beyonce. And I just love this because I love just a sweet story. So Beyonce, classy person that she is, sent flowers to a number of path breakers in country music, black women path breakers. To Mickey Guyton, who has been vocal about her struggles to be in the genre, first black solo female artist to be nominated for a Grammy in the country music category. She sent this gorgeous bouquet of flowers and a note that read, "Thank you for opening doors for me, Queen. Keep shining. Love and respect, Beyonce." And so she sent some other flowers to other folks. And I just thought, wow. you know, Kelly Ripa always asks, how do these people get your number? I don't know.
I always think about that too.
Yeah, I don't know, but I figure she's Beyonce. She can figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just thought it was so classy, and the bouquets were gorgeous. And they were very touched. All the people that she sent the flowers to were very touched with the notes from her. So
That's
that
a
was
nice
sweet.
cycle.
Yeah.
Edgar, what caught your attention?
What caught my attention is the fact that it may be that we have reached the point with music biopics where we have jumped the shark. Because announced this week is coming in 2025, All Out of Love, the Air Supply story. Yes? I don't know that folks are clamoring for it, but that duo from Australia, Air Supply, power ballad Air Supply, is going to get the movie treatment. And you know what? It's really funny. This morning I woke up because and this was my lightning round, and I thought to myself, wait a minute. It was April 1st. Was this an April Fool? Like, did I get? Is this actually an April Fool's joke? But no, there is actually going to be a movie about Air Supply. Now, I don't want to offend anybody who's a huge Air Supply fan. I really like some of those songs, but like, it just feels like, really, we're going to do an Air Supply movie? Okay, so Bohemian Rhapsody, and then Rocket Man, Elvis, Bob Marley, the Beatles, the Bee Gees, Michael Jackson, and Air Supply.
I think it may be, first of all, expect a text from me 5 o'clock on Sunday morning when that song is
Stuck in your head,
still running through.
Right.
And secondly, when you talked about this and we were all kind of laughing, I thought, remember how we laughed when we heard there was going to be a movie about Barbie?
Yeah,
That's true.
I will
Look
go
at
on
how we
record
think about
and
it
say,
now.
I will go on record when this movie comes out. I will see it, and if it is good and I love it, I will do a full mea culpa on this show. I'll do a big review about
We're
it.
gonna
I'll
make
talk
you
about
sing
why.
it.
Yeah, I'll sing some Air Supply songs. Like I'm open to it. I just think. And Air Supply. Okay.
All right, well, the headline that caught my attention this week, or we're coming to you, as you know, from the Boston Public Library, we're looking out practically at the finish line, where in just a couple of weeks, some very tired people will be ending their race, and they'll be more tired because they'll be a little more exasperated because they are not liking the new medals. So the finisher's medal that every finisher receives has been... Well, they would like to go with the word redesigned, but it's really rebranded. So this very elegant medal with the unicorn now at the bottom, where normally it would say this 114th running of the Boston Marathon is Bank of America. We don't want to trash Bank of America too much. They're big supporters of the arts. However, it's not pretty. And so this design has brought a lot of sour faces to the running world who didn't like that it was changed. And Bank of America has sponsored other races, but it's been a smaller font and it hasn't been in color, as you see. It doesn't blend into the background.
Ooh.
Why do people do that? I don't understand. I mean,
Some
it's so
things just need to
classy
stay,
when you have, where it's clear that it's you, but you're not the most important thing on an iconic race like this. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so
well, I do understand it, but
I was gonna think we know what's going on here. It's money.
Yeah,
it's money.
So there's not as much incentive to run fast to collect your medal this year. That's ultimately what they're saying.
Oh, wow.
Well, that is all the time that we have for the Culture Show. You can catch up on all things arts and culture by way of our podcasts, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Callie, before we go, what's coming up on Under the Radar?
I have my pop culture professors on this week, and we're talking about why are people so thrilled about Godzilla vs. King and Ghostbusters. I mean, they're just going through the roof. We're looking at the Oprah Effect weight loss special, the fact that Kevin Hart won the Mark Twain Prize. What does that mean? Of course, we're looking at AI and musicians, and we really actually took a deep dive into that whole musicians, AI, across the industry. What does that mean? We're also, the second part of the show is a very eye-opening book about adoption, really eye-opening, called The Politics of Adoption and the Privilege of American Motherhood.
Ooh, wow.
It's really serious and fabulously done.
Yeah.
And Eric,
What's your name?
Welcome, Eric. Good to see you.
So sorry.
Air Supply.
Air Supply, yes.
Edgar, what's going up on the curiosity? I need to lie down today. I think
okay.
that's
You
the
can
lesson.
get a nap if you can get the Air Supply song out of your head. We did some Eclipse trivia on both Greater Boston and Morning Edition. You can check that out on our YouTube page or on gbh.org. And the idea here is this will, remember the eclipse is coming Monday, and it's going to take some time for for it to happen. So you can get these like little trivia questions in your pocket so you can amaze all of your friends while you're waiting for the moon to cover the sun. So check that out online and on our YouTube page.
And you can tune into The Culture Show on Monday for Marianne Elliott, the Tony Award-winning director who updated Stephen Sondheim's Company with a gender reversal to Tony-winning effect. And comedian Daniel Sloss joins us about all the things he can't say but does anyway. And Edgar, I'm very envious, he will join us from the Path of Totality from St. Johnsbury, Vermont. Well, thank you today to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Glenn Heath, Sai Patel, Josh Polanski, Maddie Geyer, Matthew Glover, Eddie Hickey, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Isabella Karen, Carly Corin, and thanks to City Table, the Lennox Hotel, and the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Jared Bowen. Have an arts and culture-filled weekend.
Where is Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.